Good evening, everyone. I will call to order our May 12th, 2026 regular board meeting of directors. Welcome and thank you to those attending our meeting in person, joining us by Zoom, and those who are staying engaged by watching our recording at a later time. The public is reminded that if they wish to speak during community comment, they will need to fill out a speaker form located in the back of the boardroom on the table and turn it in to our board secretary, Kim Coben, seated at the end of the table on my left. Comments will take place during the designated community comment section of our agenda. At this time, I want to take a moment to introduce those seated at the table with me. To my right, we have Superintendent Degner, Directors Horn Frazier and Eastham. To my left, we have Vice President Abraham, Directors Finch, Lingo, and Board Secretary Coven. And with that, we will move to our first item of business, which is approval of tonight's agenda.
Move approval of the agenda.
Second.
Board Secretary Coven, ready to vote?
Online voting is open.
I'm a yes vote. I'm just not logged in yet.
Thank you, Director Lingo. Director Finch, I didn't get your vote.
Okay, I'm a yea vote.
Thank you very much. All votes have been cast and the motion carries with all directors voting in favor.
Thank you. That takes us to our student representative updates. We do not have a video from Tate High tonight, so I don't see West High. So we'll go ahead and start with Liberty High, John and Mia.
Okay. Well, this is it. I'm sure that we're all very busy with finals. Maybe that's why Tate didn't send in a video. But they're hopefully going somewhat well. Other than those finals, we have lots of things still going on with extracurriculars. Liberty's STEM clubs will be hosting a banquet this Thursday to close out the year, just have some food together. This Saturday, the Liberty math team will be going to a national competition. It's going to be really fun. The student council is looking for new representatives for next year. We'll see what happens there. The esports team recently visited the Children's Hospital and shared their games with the kids, which was so cool. Performing arts, not a ton of stuff, but this Friday, Liberty's not jazz band, but normal band will go to the Iowa Bandmasters Association, making history for Liberty as the first ever band to go to this program in Des Moines.
As for our general updates, like John said, finals are here and students have the pleasure of taking AP tests here at the CFI. I, alongside the rest of my senior class, will be graduating May 31st, so my time here at Liberty is coming to an end. But on a more positive note, we did get a School of the Wild field trip, since we missed that during COVID. Liberty has some big news, which I'm sure many of you guys have heard. Mr. Colbert will be moving to a school district far, far away. But we want to thank him for all the massive support that he's given the students and all of our activities and clubs here at Liberty. I think he's really just made Liberty what it is. On a more personal note, I am so grateful for this opportunity to represent my school alongside all these amazing other students within our district. So thank you guys so much for having us and having such a wonderful year. And of course, go Bolts!
Thank you. We've enjoyed having you guys too, and there's actually a small thank you from the board that the board secretary will give to you guys before you head out. So next up, we'll hear from City High, Alma and Tobiah.
Hello, everyone. Toe's not here today. He won a short story contest, so he's going to attend that ceremony. But I'm here, and I'm here to tell you that things are wrapping up at City High. We have a lot of final concerts and ceremonies and competitions before the end of the year arrives. Choir has their final concert tomorrow at 7 p.m., and the orchestra has their final concert next Wednesday. That orchestra concert will also include the choir and band, and they'll be playing selections from The Phantom Menace. I was told there would also be desserts there, so it might be really fun to attend. The City High Jazz Band still have a couple more concerts. Jazz Ensemble was selected as the best high school jazz band in the state, and so as part of that honor, we'll perform at the Iowa Bandmasters Association Conference on this Thursday. And then Jazz Collective and Ensemble will be wrapping up our season May 29th at the Ped Mall. That's always a super fun concert, so I would recommend attending. I also want to mention our spring musical, Frozen, which won several awards from the Iowa Musical Theater Association, including Outstanding Musical Showcase. In terms of athletics, I'm super proud to report that Maeve Bowen-Burt won the 400 hurdles event at the Drake Relays. I'm so excited to see what the girls track and field team does at the state competition. They've been doing very well this year. In other news, we honored 200 seniors at Seniors Night last night with awards like the All-Trimester Honor Roll, the TSTL Award, and the Emma Nugent Scholarship. Many City High School students have been working hard to earn college credit at the AP tests last week and this week here at the CFI. And we also celebrated the EPIC Awards recently with 115 teacher-nominated students being honored for their contributions to the school culture. Our mock trial team and the Business Professionals of America Club both recently placed nationally, with the mock trial team earning 11th and BPA placing in the top 10 for one event. And Student Senate organized a very successful prom. I've had so much fun getting to highlight my classmates' accomplishments here at the school board, and I want to thank you all for this opportunity and everything you do to support us at City High School. Have a great evening.
Thank you. And again, thank you to our student reps for attending our meetings for the entire school year. We all have greatly appreciated hearing the exciting things happening in the individual buildings and just seeing you all's personalities shine at the podium. So thank you so much. Next up, we will have an ICEA update from the new president, Nathan Kelly. Welcome.
Yeah, thank you. Good evening. My name is Nathan Kelly, and I have the privilege of serving as your newly elected president of the Iowa City Education Association. I have been an educator in the Iowa City Community School District now for 23 years, and I currently teach general music over at Gardner Elementary. I am honored to step into this role and representing the educators who support our students across our district each and every day. As we near the end of another school year, I first want to recognize the incredible work happening across the district. This time of year is always meaningful in education because it gives us the opportunity to reflect on the accomplishments, growth, and the experiences of our students while also recognizing the tremendous dedication that our teachers put in every day. And also the families who help us make those successes possible. Even during challenging times in public education and in our district. This past week, the district shared several teacher appreciation videos featuring students recognizing teachers who made a meaningful impact on their lives. I don't know about anyone else, but I got a couple of tears as I was watching those. Watching those moments was a powerful reminder of something that many of us already know, that we have amazing teachers in our district. I am proud to work alongside these dedicated professionals each day. ICA members from Kirkwood Elementary and Borlaug Elementary recently participated in a May Day of Action events coordinated by ISEA and NEA. These events highlighted the importance of public education, community, and the collective work educators do each day to support students and strengthen our schools. I also want to take a moment to thank our past president, ICA President Brady Shutt, for his leadership and service in our association and for our members. Serving in this role requires tremendous amount of time, which I've been told, dedication and commitment, and I appreciate the work that he's done on behalf of the educators, our district, and our students. I also want to recognize our ICA Executive Board that's recently elected for the 2026-2027 school year. I am fortunate to serve alongside these dedicated group of educators who care deeply about public education and the success of our students and our educators. I appreciate their willingness to step into leadership and those leadership roles and serve our members every day in the coming year. In addition, ICA completed another negotiation cycle, and I want to specifically recognize our negotiation co-chairs, Siri Felkler and April Kelly, along with their entire negotiations team for the significant amount of work and preparation that they dedicated throughout the process. Negotiations require many hours behind the scenes, and we appreciate everyone who contributed to representing our members professionally and thoughtfully. As I begin this role, my goal is to continue building collaborative relationships that support our educators and students. I look forward to working together in support of strong public schools and the success of all students. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we'll go to community comment. Thank you for your interest in Iowa City Community School District and for your willingness to share your comments. You are reminded to give your name, address, and topic on which you plan to speak about. During community comment, persons may speak to the board about topics relevant to the district. Speakers who make comments are reminded they are responsible for their own statements and may be subject to legal action for those which include hate speech and that are threatening, harassing, or defamatory in nature. It is expected that speakers will address the board and each other with civility and abide by the stated time limits. All community comment directed at agenda and non-agenda items will take place at the beginning of the meeting and will be limited to 4 minutes per speaker and 5 minutes for speakers who has the assistance of an interpreter. Speaker's time limit will be displayed on the iPad on the ledge in front of Board Secretary Ms. Colvin, and an alarm will sound once the speaker's time has expired. The initial community comment period will be limited to an hour, and remaining community comment, to the extent necessary, will take place at the end of the meeting. The board will not engage in any discussion during public comment. The role of the board during this time is to listen. Any individual who does not abide by these rules or otherwise disrupts the meeting may be asked to leave and/or referred to law enforcement. And our first speaker of the night is Kent Kristen.
Good evening. My name is Kent Kristen. I live at 2139 Glen Oaks Drive in Coralville. I'm here to talk about the superintendent and some of the issues surrounding the administration of the school district. In certain older, more civilized cultures, Mr. Degner, men who have failed as entirely as you would fall on their swords. They did this as a means of regaining their honor in a situation where they lost it entirely. We no longer carry swords as a matter of course, so over the intervening centuries, the practice has morphed into people resigning their positions when it was obvious they were incapable of executing their duties for their office in a satisfactory manner. You are at that point now. All the evidence we have to this point clearly demonstrates you are incapable of doing your job in the manner it demands. Your excuses that you are unaware of things happening are clearly false, and even if they were not, that would be irrelevant because you are the executive in the seat and therefore ultimately responsible for the conduct and performance of your staff. That's how leadership works. The fact that we taxpayers have a contractual obligation to hand you more than $250,000 a year in pay and benefits is flabbergasting, especially in light of the situation in which the current district currently finds itself. The idea that we should continue to pay you that much going forward when you have offered no real plan to improve the situation, no real contrition, no apparent adjustment of your attitude from this debacle is ridiculous. We can no longer trust you because you have affirmatively demonstrated you are unworthy of that trust by statement, demeanor, and deed. If you had any integrity, you would resign immediately. Barring that, the school board has a mountain of evidence that indicates you are incapable or unwilling to operate in an environment where they do not essentially micromanage you and your immediate subordinates. They should not have to do that. Having this evidence, the school board should do the right thing in that event that you don't and terminate you from your position for cause and with prejudice. Furthermore, you should have exactly nothing to do with any hirings from this point forward. You have demonstrated you're incapable of judging the ability or character of subordinates you hire. The notion the district's taxpayers should trust you to hire a replacement for the principal for Liberty High School, let alone in an environment where you are not completely transparent, is absurd. I end by reminding the voters of this district they should remember this whole thing when it comes time to vote next year. 4 members of this board are up for re-election. 2 members of this board were part of the board who voted to remove the interim tag from Mr. Degner in 2021, choosing deliberately to break from the tradition of doing a national search and forcing Mr. Degner to compete for the position that he currently holds. That decision has come home to roost in a large way. Furthermore, all 4 of these members up for re-election voted to renew his contract along with 2 other members who were recently re-elected in the 2025 election just last month after all of this came to light. If Iowa law permitted it, I would advocate that every single one of you be recalled because you clearly demonstrated that you are unwilling to hold the one person who is responsible for all of this, who has responsibility for all of this, to account. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we will have Michael Parrott.
Hi, everyone. My name is Michael Parrott. I live at 400 Nolan Drive in Coralville, Iowa. The topic I'd like to discuss is transparency. Just for context, I'm a proud alumni of the district. I graduated from West High in 2005. After that, I left Iowa City for 20 years, honestly. I was gone, I went to Chicago for school, and I worked in Europe, South America, worked in New York City and Chicago, and then came back only a year ago to raise my family and have 2 small children now that will go on to be students in the district. Wherever I've gone, I've always bragged about the school district and the amazing schools we have and the amazing opportunities provided here, and I credit a lot of my success to my education I had in the school district. I've been spending the last few weeks getting up to speed on everything that's going on, and I would like to thank the board because first, there's a lot of transparency available today. All of the documentation that's available online is very accessible and easy to read. I appreciate the recordings being available on YouTube for others to be able to watch the past meetings, and it makes it very accessible. In fact, the problem is amount of information that I'd like to talk about tonight, not the transparency of the information. I'll just echo the person before me to say, I've been kind of shocked by the severity of the situation that's occurring. The number of red flags that would normally be caught in a company that have gone by and been missed is astounding. I'm on the member of a board myself, so I empathize with your situation, including being on the audit committee of a board. But we never should have been able to get to the position we're in today, and I think the response should reflect that. But more importantly, let's talk about transparency. So to review the information that was available for tonight, there was over 500 pages of information. It's a lot to read, especially for a working parent with kids in the district. The last board meeting was also over 500 pages of material, and I don't know how you all do it to be able to keep up with it, let alone parents. And it's important that we're all educated and informed and able to keep up. So there's 2 initiatives I'd love to bring up. The first is, if you could make the data available on a more programmatic basis, it'd be easier to access. So if you could take meeting recordings, the PDF attachments, and other documents and put them on something like GitHub that can easily be downloaded en masse for members of the community, it would make the data more accessible. I know you have it on your website, it would just make it easier to scan. The second is, I think you could use AI to help people review all the information. So for example, if you loaded all the content from tonight's meeting into AI, you could ask free language, just open language, casual conversation questions and say, what are the most important topics? Where do I need to pay attention? Which document should I dig into further? And if you provided a tool like that to the community, everyone could be more informed. Personally, I'm building tools like this right now, and I'm in progress. I'd love to demonstrate them to anyone who'd like to talk with me after the board meeting. I can show you one that I've created so far, and I'll continue to do so, and would love to just kind of continue that dialogue so that the community can all work together to solve the crisis that we're in now. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we will hear from Orville Townsend.
I'm Orville Townsend, 713 Whiting Avenue here in Iowa City. Just driving around and I looked up and I saw the vulture circling, so I just came down to see what's going on. You know, I want to share with you, there was a time in Iowa City when we had a superintendent that was not a nice superintendent, that was not a good person. We had teachers taking mental health leave, all kind of activities. We hire a superintendent to come in and we make it very clear that our #1 expectation is that we demand quality education for our children. God blessed us. We've had a superintendent that's given us quality education for our children. But unfortunately, he didn't give him the ability to be clairvoyant. Management one of the sharpest tools is being able to predict. If there's a problem, you have to make a decision. We don't like it, but we'll live with it. But if we come to the decision that we don't like it and we want to improve it, then we have to be very clear in terms of exactly what do we want. And from all that I can see, everything that this city has demanded, wanted, or demanded in terms of our education for our children, we've been blessed. We don't have teachers or principals taking mental health leave because they feel unfair pressures happening to them. Our staff seem to be happy. Our children are getting quality education. But I want to warn you, be careful what you wish for. We have a superintendent, in my opinion, for what it's worth, is doing one hell of a job. But nobody stays where they're not happy or where they feel that they're not wanted. And I don't think we ever want to do that to not only our superintendent, but for any employee or person in our community. I've been waiting on somebody to give me some specifics and something that Superintendent Deckner has done that would justify this type of treatment. And the only thing I can come up with is, yes. But I can't want him to be punished because he's not clairvoyant, because he sees a pattern of what's going on, and because he wants quality education and we want quality education, he's tried to give that. He's tried to keep that in force. We have no control over the circumstances that's going to come. So we have to make our decisions based upon the past circumstances, the present circumstances, and with the information, what we feel future circumstances will be. Now, I can expect that of anybody that I would employ, but I don't think I have the right to expect or demand that any individual be clairvoyant and be able to predict the future. One thing about the future is guaranteed, it will bring changes.
Thank you. Next up, we will have Joe Holland.
Good evening. My name is Joe Holland. I live on Sharon Center Road, Southwest in Iowa City. I have really hesitated to come to public comment because I know from years of experience that administrators and board members have very difficult and way too often thankless jobs. This Iowa City Community School District is, and will be a great place for the young people in our community to obtain an education. That being said, I have represented school districts as an attorney, large districts and small districts, for almost 40 years before I retired. I chaired the Iowa Council of School Board Attorneys twice. I have never seen nor even heard of a financial disaster like the district is confronted with. To me, it seems to be a failure of leadership, both at the board level and at the administrative level. Starting with hiring of people, given the financial oversight for the district, and whether they have the capabilities to successfully carry that job. Administrators not paying attention to the financials. It's well and good to pay attention to education, but education does not run on air, it runs on money, and that's important to carry out the fundamental mission of the district. The board has a responsibility to watch those finances. In prior times, there were board members who reviewed the accounts payable, who reviewed the financials, and didn't hesitate to speak at board meetings. Also, I don't know how much oversight the board was giving to the administrators and asking them the tough questions that have to be asked. This is going to be a costly enterprise. In addition to just the funds the district needs to operate, there's going to be excessive bills for audits because doing audits forensically in the past is more expensive than doing current audits. There's going to be legal fees, probably substantial legal fees. There's going to be staff time, and that's a big factor. It takes staff members away from that fundamental mission. And fees for consultants to help see if there's a way to sort out this issue. Where's the money coming from that's needed to keep the district going and to make up for the shortfalls? There's no Moody's rating, so the district is not going to be borrowing money. Can't even find a local lender who's willing to stick their neck out and lend because they have underwriting rules. Those underwriting rules don't allow for lending to enterprises that don't timely complete their own financial reporting. Your superintendent was quoted in the media saying, essentially we'll tax our way out of this, meaning property taxes. I live in unincorporated Johnson County. 60% of my property taxes go to the school district, almost 60%. I don't have any problem in principle with that, but in return for that, I expect good stewardship and wise use of those monies, something that I'm not sure we've seen. I know there are members of this board who are very committed to affordable housing. Property taxes affect affordable housing. You raise those property taxes, it pinches people from top to bottom in the housing market. The board needs to show some public action, showing some accountability and a path forward, and airing some of the dirty laundry that needs to be aired. The people in this community are losing trust in the board and in the district, and I think that's really unfortunate. It has always been a top-notch educational system, and I think it can continue to be that, but I think the board needs to step up.
Thank you. Next up, we will have Danny Black.
My name is Danny Black, and I live in Iowa City. I'm the mom of 2 elementary students in the district. I'm also a former teacher and instructional designer, and currently I'm writing a book on learning. I'm here tonight to talk about my concerns around educational technology in our classrooms. I do recognize the importance of equipping students to meet their technology standards and the skills they're going to need in the workplace. Where we need to be cautious about EdTech is having students use machines to learn reading, writing, math, science, social studies, etc. Independent research has repeatedly shown these content areas are better learned through human connection and analog materials. I'm grateful to know that you'll be forming a committee to look closely at how EdTech is currently being used in our district and what could or should be done differently. While I appreciate the intention behind gathering feedback from surveys, I would like to encourage you to place the greatest decision-making weight on what independent research has concluded. The data on EdTech's effects on students is clear. It slows the learning process, fragments attention, decreases intrinsic motivation, increases anxiety, and causes feelings of isolation. I've been witnessing this firsthand since my children started in this district 3 years ago. Most recently, my 4th grader was dreading school daily because of the ironically named happy numbers. Because the program self-adjusts and he was working past the point of anything he'd been taught in class yet, he got stuck on long division. No amount of repetitive, machine-generated explanations were helping him get past this point. Because the majority of the class works on happy numbers while the teacher is working with a small group, he didn't have a real, live human available to help him through these challenges. Every day, he logged on to happy numbers to be greeted with red flashing lights and messages of, "Oops, let's try again." He stayed stuck in the same place for weeks, a high-achieving student feeling like a failure because he couldn't get past the hurdle of an empathy-lacking machine pushing him toward without ample support. He was convinced he sucked at math. This is one of many examples my children have shared. I place no blame on the teachers. I look to the administration that has created a framework and requirements that students complete X number of minutes on each program per week. Please help me understand how it's more useful to have students stare at a screen to receive differentiated instruction rather than working with a living, breathing human who can establish relationships, lead with empathy, and adjust their approach to meet the unique needs of each child. One-to-one Chromebook programs do not have a place in elementary schools. Their use should be limited and intentional in middle and high school. Reading from books and writing on paper have been shown over and over again to be superior for learning engagement and retention. Every time a student learns from a screen, they lose the opportunity for human interaction, developing social skills, cooperative problem solving, and empathy. These are also skills they will need in the workplace. Every time they learn from a screen rather than tactile materials, they lose opportunities to develop creativity, critical thinking, and fine motor skills. As I see the effects of the abundant screen time on my children, I feel powerless over the unintended harms they're experiencing every time they go to school. What I want for all children in our district is to learn from humans, not machines. I want them to form meaningful connections with their teachers and peers and look forward to the enthusiastic buzz of a classroom rich with activity. I want them to be set up for success and good mental health by the decision makers who sit in front of me tonight.
Thank you. Next, we will have Robert Cargill.
Good evening. My name is Robert Cargill. I live here on Bluffwood Drive. I have 4 children enrolled in the district, and I'm a teacher here in Iowa City. Given the present crisis affecting our school district, I am compelled to say the following. Number 1, the Iowa City Community School District Board of Education cannot move forward from this crisis with any credibility whatsoever without replacing the Iowa City Community School District Superintendent, Administration, and Leadership team. Number 2, we cannot allow fiscal mismanagement of this magnitude to occur and then attempt to implement a remedy that is led by the very people who led us into this $10 million crisis in the first place. 3, we especially cannot trust this same administration to implement a remedy when their first attempt at solving the fiscal chasm was to target and cut everything but their own salaries and perks. Of course, they later agreed to voluntarily freeze their pay raises and perks, but only after they were called out on this. 4, we cannot trust this same administration to implement a remedy when an administrative executive employee sent a letter to district employees coercing them to sign a loyalty pledge. Of course, this employee was asked to rescind this call for a loyalty pledge, but again, only after they were called out on this. And 5, perhaps most importantly, if the ICCSD school board does not take immediate action to remove and replace our superintendent and administration, then we are only demonstrating to legislators in Des Moines who want to cut our education funding precisely why they should do so. We are the bluest city in the state, and if we ask for education funding and then mismanage that funding on a scale of this magnitude, and then hold no one accountable, we do nothing but hand campaign fodder to those legislators who want to cut education funding. They will say, why should we give them more funding? They lose $10 million, and when they do, they leave the same people in charge and no one is held accountable. You are making their case for them. You are helping them win elections they have no business winning. The ICCSD is essentially raising funds and providing campaign material for those legislators who want to cut education funding. You cannot allow that to happen. You must take action. In no other job in the state can you mismanage $10 million and keep your job. Enough is enough. You must take responsibility and make sure the legislators in Des Moines have zero reason to cut our funding any further. Make the difficult decision and replace the ICCSD Superintendent, Administration, and Leadership Team. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we will have Maka Pilcher Hyatt.
I'm Maka Pilcher Hayek. I live in Iowa City. Anyone who knows me knows that it'd be hard to find someone who is a bigger cheerleader for the Iowa City Community School District. For 4 months, the district we love has been reeling with the news of mismanagement and the resulting financial crisis. The board majority's response has subjected the ICCSD to months of brutal fact-finding and discovery. Directors Finch and Lingo have been asking the tough questions and pushing back at incomplete and inaccurate information. Board leadership also seems fed up with the onslaught of huge mistakes and the lack of accountability. The remaining members have, to the public's dismay, demonstrated a costly allegiance to the admin team whose mismanagement got us here. It turns out a financial crisis makes strange bedfellows. Allowing this admin team to scapegoat its own bad hire is the opposite of good leadership. To repeat what the previous speaker said, I had written, enough is enough. We need those who are willing to prioritize the district over their personal relationships to lead us out of this mess now. I was prepared to give the list of the huge mistakes and things that should have been enough reason for change, but I'm not going to give you that list of horribles because the newspaper has it covered. Until the ICCSD has new leadership, that news cycle will continue and the board will not regain the community's trust. This district cannot afford to wait until it's convenient for those at fault to leave. We cannot allow the current superintendent, deputy superintendent, and HR director to continue to make big decisions, whether they are hiring decisions, financial oversight, or even educational in nature. It is time to plan and implement next steps and start rebuilding. If the board can show us you're willing to do that, the community will have your back. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we will have Angie Rogers.
Good evening. My name is Angie Rogers and I live in Coralville. I want to speak tonight about board accountability. Board accountability means providing independent oversight of district leadership, demanding transparency and accurate information, ensuring corrective action plans are implemented, and taking action when leadership failures place students, staff, taxpayers, and the district at risk. The public continues to hear variations of the same explanation. We hired the wrong person and he made some bad decisions. That explanation is not acceptable. The financial crisis facing our district cannot be reduced to blaming one employee while everyone else claims ignorance and deflects responsibility for the systemic leadership and oversight failures that allowed this crisis to occur. What makes this explanation even more ridiculous is the fact that this district had a corrective action plan from November 2023. That plan outlined specific procedures, timelines, assigned responsibilities and oversight expectations intended to correct serious deficiencies in the district's financial operations. It is indisputable that district leadership was aware there were significant deficiencies requiring formal corrective action. Yet, at the March 24, 2026 board meeting, the interim CEO confirmed that district leadership failed to fully execute that corrective action plan. So again, this simply was not one employee making bad decisions. There also appears to have been a second corrective action plan related to the district's negative unspent balance for fiscal year 2024. This was referenced in the executive summary dated February 6, 2025 of the SBRC hearings held on January 8, 2025. In that report, ICCSD was directed to submit monthly reports to the board demonstrating the financial position of the district in relation to its certified budget control lines and maximum spending authority. Yet, according to yesterday's Gazette article and a quick review of meeting agendas, those monthly reports were never provided to the board. How does a board charged with oversight not receive reports specifically required as part of a state-directed corrective action process? And if those reports were not being provided, why did board leadership not demand them? Perhaps most frustrating to the broader community is the board's continued minimization of district leadership's accountability and its repeated deflection from the core issue. At the last board meeting, one board member appeared to suggest that forecasting the timing of state payments is difficult, and that as a result, the district's cash flow problems are understandable. Districts and businesses across the country successfully manage 12, 18, 24, and even 36-month cash flow projections every single day. Why was this district unable to do the same? Financial forecasting and cash flow management are fundamental responsibilities of leadership. The community wants transparency, accountability, and decisive leadership. Board members were elected to represent students, staff, families, and taxpayers, not to be a rubber stamp and defer to district administration. Simply allowing district leadership to exit on their own timeline after years of financial failures and broken public trust is not accountability. It is the board failing in its duty to govern, enforce accountability, and protect the interests of students, staff, families, and taxpayers. At what point will this board demand accountability from district leadership? Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we'll have Jenny Struthers.
Ready? Okay. Hi, I'm Jenny Struthers. I am from Coralville. Have one kid at West High and a recent grad. I am here today. There has been a lot tonight, a lot in the last couple months. It has been a hard situation with a lot of emotions. There's been discussions, opinions, rumors, everything. So what I would like to do tonight is to just go over primary sources. That these are facts, they're not opinions, they're not anybody's slant, these are facts. Right here I have from the board document, which is on your website, on January 14th, 2025, regular meeting of the Board of Directors. Category E was the consent agenda approval. Number 3 was accounts payable. This was a memo that was to the Board of Directors through Matt Degner, the superintendent, through Chase Ramey, the deputy superintendent, through Adam Kurth, the chief financial officer, from Alexander Bombino, who is an accounting specialist. There were 16 PDF attachments to this item, and one of them was a detailed check register from December 20th, 2024. This is the check register. There's one item on it, and it is an invoice from December 20th, 2024 for tax filing penalties in the amount of $390,646.16. This was, so we know all these people were aware that the memo came from, and it was distributed to the board and consented and voted on to approve the expenditure. From the school, from the interim CFO report from April 14th, 2026, there is a list of tax penalties. On June 30th, 2025, there were two more penalties that were from failure to properly make a tax deposit and failure to timely file. This equaled a total of $129,479.71. This was 5 months after a lot of people in this room were aware that we paid almost $400,000 gone for tax penalties. Fact. not disputable. Our interim CFO continued in her report to say the late filings continued by staff as there was no proper monitoring and oversight by business office supervisors to ensure this did not happen again. All the late filings have been made and paid that have been identified. So hopefully we won't have any more. But that was 5 months after we were all aware. Next, we had updated financials. There was a corrective action plan. This is on your website. It's Exhibit A. It's from the meeting of November 14th, 2023. We were late filing for the certified annual report, the special education supplement, and a transportation report. There was corrective action plans in here for many people, including Mr. Degner and our past CFO. A different action plan was also from the state of Iowa, January 28th, 2025, for negative unspent balances. Both of these required monthly financial accounting that did not happen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we will hear from David Norpier.
Good evening. I apologize for missing the last meeting. People don't tend to take action until they feel some pain or until they understand what's going on. There's two things I'd like to mention tonight. I've talked to a lot of parents. I coach. I've talked to parents in your group, and I've talked to parents from probably every racial and or other group that we have in the district, and people don't know what's going on. There is gaslighting going on. We get these messages that, oh, we don't have money because there's less students. Oh, this, oh, that. They have no idea. The Gazette put together a very good article yesterday. I would like to ask the board to request that that article be given to every family in the district and that translation be provided for those families who do not speak English. I had an interesting conversation with a Latino student, and I said, you know, everybody's talking about whites and blacks. What about your group? And they said, you know, my parents don't even speak English. So please, if you could, request that that article be sent to every parent in the district and make sure that they're aware that they can get a translation. It's been mentioned how much time has passed since we've learned about this. And as time passes, more people learn, groups get formed, plans of action get written. People are becoming frustrated that we're not moving forward. We have lawyers in the room. I think most of you understand the concept of gross negligence. It's a very, very high standard for elected officials. However, when an elected official is put on notice and they choose to continue an action which is detrimental, it's very likely that that could be looked at as being grossly negligent. Gross negligence carries with it liabilities. We have lost a significant amount of money, taxpayer money. Parents are upset, taxpayers are upset. Mr. Degner, in my opinion, Adam Kurth, in my opinion, other members of the administration have demonstrated gross negligence, and I believe it's the board's responsibility to investigate and then proceed legally as needed. But I will tell you, there's a group of parents who may have a jump on you. And I have personally contributed financially to investigating this option. That could come back to board members. I would suggest that you save us the problems and the difficulties associated with legal action and do what is correct. Mr. Degner, your children go to our schools. Your wife is a teacher in this district. You have caused a lot of damage. For the sake of them, my children, my friends who are teachers, every time I've been up here, I've asked you, please consider doing what's right. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we will hear from Chris Appling.
Good evening. My name's Chris Appling. I live at 1317 Ozark Ridge in Coralville, Iowa. I'm an English teacher at Tate High, and I did want to kind of share a positive, exciting update from Tate. And first of all, I wanted to celebrate the student from Liberty earlier that was shouting out our Tate students, and I'd give him an A+ for kindness. But what I wanted to share is really cool. A small cohort of us teachers at Tate applied to a program over the summer from USC, the University of Southern California, called USC Candle. It's a summer design sprint. And we actually got accepted. And so this summer, in July, we are going to, and it's fully funded. They're going to fly us out to LA at USC, and it's for, CANDLE stands for Center for Effective Neuroscience Development, Learning, and Education. So it's a really cool program where, and I'll just read you why I brought it up here. It was a lot of big words, even though as an English teacher. The Design Sprint is an in-person professional learning experience where educator teams translate research on adolescent development and the science of learning into classroom design innovations. Working with a collab structure, participants actively design and refine an instructional innovation they can implement in their classroom. So it's really cool. They're flying us out there, hotels, everything's covered. So we got some really exciting news, cool things are happening at Tate. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next up, we will have Katie Linder.
Hello, my name is Katie Linder. I live in Iowa City, and I have 2 children in the Iowa City Community School District. I appreciate the opportunity to provide public comment tonight. I'm coming to you as a concerned parent and taxpayer for the 3rd time now, and lots of emails. I continue to be worried about the state of our finances and the lack of accountability and transparency about this situation. It is now May 12th. We have until May 15th before administrator contracts automatically renew. I wrote the board and superintendent after the last email went out to parents explaining that our financial situation was improving. We wouldn't need as large of a loan. However, that letter neglected to mention that not one bank was willing to give us a loan. That is hugely problematic and very scary. What happens when the time comes that we need a loan and no one will give us one? That's a huge problem. Emails like these take for granted the engagement and intelligence of this community and continue to erode our trust. I know you all recognize this as a problem. You talk about wanting to rebuild trust in this environment. A word of advice, try communicating from a place of honesty and accountability. Please skip the spin. There is no spinning the situation. Speaking of a lack of trust, a recent article by the Gazette does not bolster more. It appears our top administrators were aware when we lost our bond rating and did not correct our then CFO, Adam Kurth, when he lied to our board members and told us we had a AA rating last May. A spokesperson said, quote, "This was not intentional to leave the statement uncorrected." Either way, that looks terrible. Either they knew and didn't say anything, or after that communication was received that the rating was suspended, they didn't stay close to the situation. Either scenario is completely unacceptable. And leads me to my final point. I and many in this community continue to be disappointed and quite frankly shocked by the lack of outrage, willingness to take responsibility, and accountability by our top district leaders for this self-made crisis. I want to thank a few of you as board members who have recognized your role in this mess, but I continue to challenge that. How can you be a watchdog when you are not receiving the reporting and information you need from this administration? The monthly reporting the state told us to complete. Now is the time for you as elected officials to hold this administration accountable. It's your time now to actually be a watchdog, to do something
So far, the public table has been mostly quiet, except for theatrical hole poking and proposals for more transparency and process from Directors Finch and Lingo. A few of you also continue to need a reality check. You are part of the problem. Director Easom publicly stated the situation is not a crisis. He called reaction by parents hysterical. And to Director Williams, who seems more focused on building a competitive pool and points her outrage at process improvements proposals from her colleagues instead of this administration, who are most responsible for what we're experiencing. I'd love to see an ounce of that outrage go toward this administration. You spent the last meeting worked up about whether we were going to pay contractors or not. Literally no one is suggesting that we skip paying contractors. However, there is a very real possibility that you will need loans to pay your teachers. Where is the same level of outrage? We've spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on a temporary CFO to clean up this mess and incurred more than $500,000, maybe more, based on that fact-finding, in tax penalties. That's enough to pay 5 teacher salaries. Again, where is the outrage? We need accountability. Superintendent Dagner and Deputy Superintendent Ramey should be fired. The buck stops with them. And this is a list of what's happened. We've made a $10 million interfund loan without board approval. We're years behind on audits. We lost a Moody bond rating. There's been no financial bookkeeping or year-end accounting. They hired an inexperienced technology professional to be a CFO. They misallocated tax dollars to the wrong accounts, and we've paid nearly $500,000 in tax penalties. If this list doesn't get you fired, my question will be, what does? This board needs to hold our current administrators accountable, and we need new leadership. Voters will have the final word on this. I'm just afraid to see how bad the damage is before we're able to actually intervene.
Thank you. That concludes community comments, so thank you, everyone. Next up is our public hearing, and the public hearing for tonight is for the amended 2025-2026 certified budget.
Now is the time and place for the public hearing on the district's proposed fiscal year 2026 certified budget amendment. Notice of public hearing was published in the Iowa City Press Citizen on April 29th, 2026. Are there any comments from the board? Is there anyone from the community that would like to advise or provide comment to the board on the proposed fiscal year 2026 budget amendment?
All right, that concludes that public hearing. And before we get to tonight's consent agenda, were there any questions, comments from directors who reviewed the bills this cycle?
I sent a director inquiry about the Medicaid payments paid back to the state, and there may be some folks in the community who saw that on the bills as well. So I don't know, Superintendent Dagner, if you want to explain to the community what that repayment was to the state, that would be helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, there was 2 different payments that you would have noticed on there, roughly $150,000 each. One, it was the state share. When we get paid our Medicaid revenues, we owe the state a share of that payment, and so that would have been one of them. The other one was a Medicaid review that all of the UEN districts in the state underwent, and they determined that some of the busing costs that the state needed reimbursed for some of those busing costs. There was $150,000 of that revenue that was owed back to the state.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, are there items that directors would like to pull from tonight's consent agenda? Hearing none, I would entertain a motion for approval of tonight's consent agenda. Sorry.
I moved. Second.
All right. Board Secretary Coburn, ready to vote?
Online voting is open. All votes have been cast and the motion carries with all directors voting in favor.
Thank you. I do know that we have the new Liberty Principal here with us tonight that was just approved. Deputy Superintendent Ramey.
Good evening, members of the board. I did not know he was going to make an appearance, but as our student representative from Liberty mentioned, Principal Colbert is moving on to a different position. And we just want to thank the Liberty community, students, and staff through helping us through the process of finding a new principal, and that is Adam Zimmerman, and we really appreciate the board's approval this evening. Adam comes to us with years of experience from Cedar Rapids, but this is also a bit of a homecoming for Adam as he is a graduate of the Iowa City Community School District. And so just have Adam stand real quick so we can recognize him as the new principal. Congratulations, Adam, and we're happy to have you in the district. Thank you.
Welcome. Next up, policy review. It's the 800 policies for buildings and sites and policy primers that we will see again under action items. But Director Lingo, you're the Chair of Policy and Governance. Any additional comments?
Trying to go back through my notes from last week, or from 2 weeks ago. The 800s was mostly changes from, being changed from chief operating officer, and changes to health services manager to senior health services manager. Then at that meeting, we talked about climate plans, the 800 series, since that lives within those policies. The policy primers, it's another list as they typically are from legal to align with current Iowa law and the Department of Education guidance and alignment within those laws. Stephanie, other comments?
Any other comments on that?
I just want to make a comment. We sort of got a last-minute email from a constituent with questions and concerns about 801.1, and we don't really have time to review that here at the board table today. It's up for a vote tonight, so I just would propose that perhaps we bring the 800s back to policy and governance at some time and can take a look at some of those things.
Sounds good. So and that was 801?
801.1.
801.1, if we can get back to that. Thank you, Director Finch.
And the policy primers?
Oh, I already went through that there.
Oh,
Those
you
are
covered all that.
largely
Okay.
just the
Right.
items to align ourselves with state law that come from to us from either IASB or ALERS. Or, and if it's from IASB, it is from ALERS, so, thank you.
Okay, with that, we'll move on to our first discussion item, the interim chief financial officer update.
Good evening, everybody. I'll give you an update as of today. Right before the meeting, I updated our schedule that we've been presenting to you of where we stand with the reconciliations and so forth. In the packet, there's something different as of today at 5 o'clock. The 2025, all the bank reconciliations have been completed through June 30 of 2025. All the investment accounts are in process now, so that's a very significant improvement that's been made over this short period of time. And in 2026, the general fund and the activity fund is now currently being worked on as well by somebody else who's trying to get everything coordinated here as quickly as possible. With that said, our audit report for 2024 is hopefully scheduled to, I'm supposed to have a draft hopefully by Friday. If not by Friday, we'll have it by Tuesday. The auditors are coming in for us to have a discussion with them regarding the reports. Hopefully I'll have a couple days to actually review it and look at the findings. So I think that's a significant improvement that we're actually going to have an audit for 2024. 2025 audit field work and is scheduled to begin on August 10th and hopefully be finished, so you'll have reports back at the end of October around Halloween. I think that's when it is, Halloween. Those are the significant changes over the last time we talked for the financials. The only other thing I would mention here, because I did mention in the report, our self-insurance fund, we fill out what's called a 509A form with the state, and we actually this afternoon too, actually received our actuarial opinion, so we can actually get that filed with the state for 2024, and we're waiting for the 25, as they're still working on that. As soon as that gets done, we can upload that with the state as well too.
I have a question about that. Thanks for that update. That's good news. Not knowing anything about that process, is there also a risk or potential penalty for a late filing with that? And what's the nature of that? If you
Sure.
can share.
Once I became aware of this, we did contact the state and inquire about just that. Basically, like if they don't know, let's self-report so we can put an end to that. They have waived all penalties and interest, any fines and so forth for that since it was delayed. So we will have none of those. Mhm.
Once the, once the audit, so that we're getting the, what do we call it, the pre-audit, or what's?
The preliminary field work.
The preliminary audit, whatever comes in the next week and a half.
The draft.
The draft version,
yeah.
that's it, I'm sorry.
That's good.
When the draft version is here, typically what's the turnaround on submission, completion and submission at that time?
That's gonna depend on what's in there. So typically what happens when you get the draft, management usually goes through it. If we have any changes or corrections, that's why we're having the meeting on Tuesday morning with the auditors to try to get this expedited a little bit. Then we'll give them any of our comments, then they'll come back with their findings, and we want to make sure we have adequate time to address any findings and make sure the board is aware of those as well too, and then turn it around. So we should have final no later probably than the end of June.
Okay.
Hopefully sooner.
How long do you think it will take for you to turn around and give the findings to the board?
As quick as I can.
No.
I don't know,
Yeah,
because I
that's
don't know
fair.
what's in there. I don't know if there's gonna be one finding or if there's gonna be 6 findings. I don't know,
Okay.
so,
Thank you.
but I'll make you aware of
It's
it.
just
as soon
more
as-
of wanting to know, not like 3 weeks from now or whatever. You know what I mean?
Well, I'm only here for a short period.
Yeah.
And then I'm gone for a couple weeks and then I'll come back. So if I don't get them done before I get back, then I'll forward those on to you.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Okay.
On the topic of audits, I wanted to be reminded about, in your May 8th summary, you talk about the FY '25 audit anticipated to be completed by the end of October. So then I was thinking about what's typical or best practice for the amount of time before FY '26 audit would be then complete. Like, what's the regular cadence we should expect following catching up?
Sure. We've talked about when to start the 26 audit, as it'll try to get us up to date. So with 25 being projected to be done by the end of October, the projection is with the audit firm is for them to either start like at the end of December or the beginning of January 26 audit, to have the audit completed and done to the board by March, and therefore you'll be up to date in cadence with it.
And that would be what we would expect to see going forward, that time frame each year.
Or sooner. Okay. I would push for sooner, but yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is the board financial leadership update.
I don't know whether this goes in here, but after the information about emails and deletion, I'd like to see a policy put forward to hold on to director level position or higher on the administrative team emails. I don't know what seems right, but 180 days does not seem like enough. And I've talked to people and hearing that in some cities, they have 3 years to 5 years of retaining emails after.
So I'm not sure how to go about that exactly.
It sounds like there was some confusion about definition of terms even in the policy. I think we just need to clear that up.
Deputy Superintendent Ramey?
Director Lingo, we could, if you want it in that document, that's fine, but we also have a document retention policy. And so if we wanted to work on, I don't have it off the top of my head, but I could pull that policy number for you and we could bring it back to make that change in the actual policy as part of our work on P&G.
Yeah, I do want to make it clear that it's not a board policy that emails are deleted. I don't think there's anything in our board policies.
It's a district, it's the
right.
district policy, right?
Yeah, okay.
Right, yeah.
It's more
Yes, excuse
procedural
me.
than anything that's in the board policies. We had a community commenter tonight who brought up a very good idea of how we can help the board and the public of sifting through all of the information that we need to go through prior to every meeting so that we are informed and prepared. And so I would like us, and I think it absolutely relates to this financial issue, I would like us as a board to explore some of those options and to take a look at that. I'm not sure if maybe that would be under operations, perhaps. Maybe we could add that to an operations, but I can bring that up at agenda setting. Okay, thank you.
Other comments on this document? Our next item for discussion is the facilities master plan resolution. And Director Lingo, thank you for looking at it and revising and trying to work through everything we said about it last time. You did a really nice job with that. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Just one moment. I closed out of.
I don't know how to define financial stability exactly either, so that seems to be our
So,
open
bring it
point.
up. The main changes, bring it up, facility master plan resolution. So, thank you to Deputy Superintendent Ramey for working on this with me over the weekend. In the document, first we struck out the line for projects currently in construction phase, defined as those, that subsection, that was a concern. And we added in a little spot below that projects currently at step 7 or beyond may continue towards completion through the district's current process outlined in policy 707.5G1. Then and I'll go back to, we have a line for financial stability being defined as blank, and I'll come back to some ideas there in a moment. And then we added in to have a cash flow forecast, so we have a good idea of that from the from the financial advisors and bond counsel. Then added in, changed a little bit of language so that the board would further direct the development of a revised facilities master plan that includes a list of prioritized projects of low, medium, and high. In the relation to ideas for financial stability, a few that kind of came to mind, but again, I wanted to open it up to other people as well. Completion and submission of the fiscal year 2024 audit. All bank reconciliations are current, and the written recommendation by the CFO and superintendent that the district is financially stable as an idea as financial stability. So then we have the CFO we have one audit turned in, bank reconciliations all cut up, and then the CFO and the superintendent as their opinions, so.
Right, I think those are the good metrics. I couldn't quite decide, I mean, there's so many metrics to consider, but I think, yeah, those are important.
Go ahead, Director.
Is there, so I know that we're looking at creating or establishing criteria or a definition that is meaningful and then also attainable in the not so distant future so that we can start making some plans. One thing that came to mind as a possible criterion to consider would be the lack of a need for borrowing or anticipatory warrants at that time, as another indicator that might be important there. or if the others that you've named would be sufficient and stand-ins for a similar kind of indicator. Just throwing that out there as a possibility.
I think adding anticipatory warrant would be fine as well. So would we be fine, and, well, Chase isn't here to check the language. So it would be an amend the blank space, so removing that as, and then putting it in, completion and submission of the fiscal year 2024 audit, comma, all bank reconciliations are current, comma. What would you think would, for language of lack of anticipatory warrant, or?
No need for,
No anticipated, or
No, yeah, no
don't need
anticipated
any,
need.
don't have any, don't, I don't know.
Jane?
or maybe there's a positive way to put it too, like.
No outstanding?
Yeah.
Is that what you meant to say?
No,
Yeah.
I don't want to say no anticipated need for an anticipatory warrant, but that sounds redundant. But no need for an anticipatory warrant. And the written recommendation by the CFO and superintendent that the district is financially stable.
I'm wondering if interim CFO Kim might have an opinion on that too.
Feel free.
I did have a wordsmith
Yeah,
that
go
you were
ahead.
saying, when you're trying to figure out the no anticipated and just no need,
No need.
no
for-
need.
No need
That
for
would
an
read a little bit
anticipatory warrant.
smoother, so.
Thank you. Kim, could you read that out loud for, not to, just so we know?
Just
Yeah.
a little, I can
Okay.
listen back to the tape to get it. Let's see, bank reconciliations and audits complete. No need for anticipatory warrants. Written recommendation by CFO and superintendent that district is financially stable.
So
I think that's a good, that's a good.
I think you specified the FY '24
Yeah,
audit.
FY24, yeah. So I believe we need so that's been submitted, so we need I'll submit that, so I need a second on a motion to amend to those words.
I second.
What, we have another comment?
So before we go, go
Yeah,
ahead.
can I ask a question? In that language, are you talking about FY '24 bank recs all completed? Because we're not completed through '26, only through '24 and then most
Yeah.
of '25.
And
So,
through 26. So all.
Right, we want them all completed.
Yeah.
okay, so this wouldn't be done then and signed off until '26 was completed?
Correct.
Okay,
That's that, yeah.
yeah, that's fine.
So does that mean that you're thinking that this would be an
Well,
evaluation?
what I mean by
done this
current, I
summer?
mean like when the whatever date, so if we were to say that this was to pass today, it would be that we're up to, the reconciliations were completed up to this month. Well, yeah, not all the way through, you know what I mean? So, do you have recommended language?
What do you mean, through 26?
What's the estimated date for that, Kim? By the end of June? Okay.
I think that's okay.
That's fine.
So I'm sorry, what are you proposing for the date to have reconciliations done? Or
Bank reconciliations done by for fiscal year 26.
Okay, so that won't be, those won't be
Till
done
June.
Yeah.
until this summer.
Yeah, July, yeah, right. So this is an action item for us, and can we can still vote on it with these changes, or do we have to wait, or?
I think you'd want to amend the
yeah, we want-
resolution in the action item.
Okay, amended the action item.
Yeah, I
and
would
then we'll-
suggest your amendment there, and then you can
Okay.
take action on it during
Yep.
that portion.
Thank you. Thank you for your work on that, appreciate it.
Thank you. And thank you for Director Horn-Fraser for some of our ideas this week. Appreciate it.
Okay. Next discussion item is the Coralville Rec Center. Superintendent Degner, is that you?
Yeah, I'm actually going to turn it over to Chief Operating Officer Pratt, and then we'll be happy to answer any questions.
Okay.
Yeah, so the memo we put together was just a real basic outline of what we believe are the possible options, putting everything on the table of what we can do in regards to the Coralville Rec Center. Obviously, we would like to have a much broader discussion and more depth on all those options, probably in June, and we believe the city will have more information at that time that'll also be helpful as well. But certainly wanted to have the discussion tonight if there was anything specifically the directors wanted us to look into for any of those options, data points or whatever, that we can start to begin to gather on that.
I don't have any questions about the facility itself. I just would like, or suggest anyway, that we continuously include information about why we would like to have a swim team in both Liberty and Coralville that are not combined. That's one of the.
Sure.
So at our last meeting, I asked for a couple of conversations to happen, and I don't know if there's any progress that have been made for that. So the one conversation was to go back to the combined swim team, coaches, parents, the student athletes, and the schools, to get an idea of where their interests lie in terms of keeping a swim team together, or if they feel strongly about separating, given our financial situation. And I asked, as did Director Lingo, I'll speak for you, if that's okay.
That's fine.
To look around the community for rental opportunities. And I don't know if any movement has been made on that front.
Yeah, District Athletic and Activities Director Tunisia May had done some research on that. The results aren't great, to be honest. And there's not a lot of either pools that meet the length or depth requirements for a swim team to utilize, or the time availability to offer for either a team that needs to practice or a team that has to compete. So we can certainly provide that as part of our larger discussion overall, but there are not a lot of great options out there within the community.
So you'll bring that back to us in June, is what you're saying?
Correct.
Okay.
And Director Finch, on the other one, I would say we need to still spend some more time to get that information too on the two swim teams versus one swim team, and feelings of the parents. But we'll continue to work to get that. Yep.
Over the past week, it was brought to my attention that Pepple is maybe limited in funding, allowing to build a pool, especially on non-school land. I went back to look at the recent pool additions, Milwaukee, Dubuque, Mason City, and Linn-Mar. They all use SAVE or GO bonds in some capacity, but not Pepple. Do we know if definitively from Allers that Pepple can be used on a project like this?
Yeah, I think the board and the admin team have both asked Allers for an opinion on that, and they've shared with us it'd be a couple weeks to get that opinion. The initial reading of code seems positive about that. I think a couple cautionary things with that. One, we've had a massive legislative change on SAVE, which is going to impact how we have conversations about capital projects, knowing how our SAVE is borrowed out into the future. And then knowing how that might also impact Pepple and the need to utilize Pepple for other projects. So again, I think as we move into this summer, those are going to be a couple important things to consider as part of this conversation, to know what resources are available or not available to allow us to answer this question on this project. So the simple answer to your question, Director Lingo, is no, but that is something we've asked Allers for.
And I would also suggest, at least it would be my interest, that we continue to keep the Coralville City Council and staff informed of what our concerns and interests are as we go forward, so that they understand what we might be wanting to do in the future if we're planning on changing things that we've talked with them about in the past.
On that note, have there been any additional conversations with the city of Coralville since the last meeting?
Nothing substantive. We do have a meeting next week to touch base with them, but no additional details to share out, Director Finch.
So when you meet with them, you'll update them on
Yeah, we'll
what all
let them
we're
know
looking
some of the
at
things
and-
we're waiting on and working on. Yeah.
The one option on the list that I would just probably say go ahead and, well, I'll just say it, to strike it would be option 3, the district constructs an auditorium, because I think that's probably, it's not going to be worth the time to look at, because we don't have the PEPAL, we know we don't have the SAVE, and I don't think we would get a go bond to be able to build an auditorium at this time. Because, I mean, the Waukees was the most recent one built, and that was $24 million to build their auditorium.
Other directors have thoughts on that?
I just wanted to ask about the consideration of operating costs too. I cannot remember if we've had much conversation about, you know, let's say hypothetically something is built that we are partnering with the city on. Has there been much conversation about different scenarios in terms of operating costs? I don't know if there's staffing, what implications there are in that way.
I wouldn't say anything super substantive in that regard. We have, one of the steps we've recently completed in the design meetings that I've attended is they've done their energy modeling to understand what systems they're going to select. And so from there, then they can begin to project what the usage and the costs might be and what that could be. So I would say we're kind of just on the cusp of being able to answer your question in that regard.
Thank you.
In this Coralville meeting in a couple weeks, would it be okay if any board members that were around be able to come and watch it as well, if they want? Okay. So if we can, go ahead.
Oh, do we have a time for that?
Or
Chase, do you have it up quick?
Coralville.
Meeting with Coralville?
We know the date.
I think Thursday, the 21st
It's at 10:30, I believe.
at 10:30.
So we can figure out who would
Okay.
attend later, I don't.
Okay. Thursday, the 21st at 10:30. So we'll see who can attend. Okay.
You guys just want to take volunteers for that? Do you want to look at your rotating list? How do you want me to
Do the
start with that?
rotating list to keep it.
Go with that, okay.
Yeah. Or if anybody objects, let me know.
No, I think that's fine. Yeah, see if anybody can go. Okay, our next discussion item is the Wear Orange Day 2026 resolution. The board has, did this last year as well. I don't know, I hope everybody had a chance to sort of look through it. Declares the first Friday in June to be National Gun Violence Awareness Day in the Iowa City Community School District to honor and remember all victims and survivors of gun violence and to declare that we as a country must do more to end this public health crisis. And then more specific items. Are there any comments on this? Anybody?
Did any board member bring this to
This was President Malone.
President Malone?
Yep.
Well, thank you, President Malone.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. That will move on to our presentations. The first one is the Farm to School Greenhouse Grant. And that will be, Director Gwenigali.
All right. Well, thank you so much for giving me time today to kind of present really quickly on this Farm to School Grant Award we just received. So we were informed early in April about the Farm to School Grant Award. This has been something we've been working on for a couple of years now. I'm just going to briefly share about what the grant award is, how it's connected to curriculum moving forward, and then what the two-year action plan is. And so this is a two-year award. There was a lot of people involved in the process of this. So we had some members of our teaching and learning team and some members from our operations team also. So for all of us together. We also worked with the Johnson County Poor Farm Group and also with the Iowa Valley Resource Conservation Development Team. So this started when we had our 6th grade students go to the Johnson County Poor Farm, and that's been an experience that the students have valued for the last couple of years. And so the goal was to continue this and make it more sustainable. And so that's what we started working with the Johnson County Poor Farm team to apply for this grant in 2023. We weren't lucky to get it that year. We applied for it again, and all the federal grants were on pause the following year. So we finally tried again the 3rd time, which is 3rd time's the charm. We got it this year, and we were awarded the full amount for the grant. So we had 2 grants that we applied for. One was for the Patrick Ely Farm to School grant, and so that's from the USDA, United States Department of Agriculture. The other one was the STEM Best Award that we received. So one was for $50,000, the other one was close to $500,000. And so together, those 2 grants will fund 3 greenhouses for our middle schools. And so it's fully funded. We'll get everything covered through that awards. The $45,000 will cover for the foundation. So there's the cement foundation that will be in place. And then the $210,000 will cover for the full installation of the greenhouses and everything that comes with it. And so that will be through that process. We also get part of that award goes towards personnel to help with the oversight of the implementation. So that's broken down to 2 years. That will cover the cost of supports to oversee the full implementation of not only the installation of the greenhouses, but also the support of the curriculum development and working through professional development for the teachers. That will be part of the process. And then also our partnership with the Iowa Valley Resource and Conservation and Development team. And so then there's a sub-award because of the work that we have with that team. Our goal is to maintain that relationship and make it sustainable. And so that Iowa Valley Resource Conservation and Development team will be working with this New Century Farmer Training Fellowship to hire 10 beginner farmers that will be working within our school districts and with our students. And I'll explain a little bit more further what they'll be doing. And then there's also then indirect revenue costs that will be associated with any administrative costs that's needed for the grant, for the oversight and just the work throughout. So the award we received announcement of that in, like I said, in April. The award date starts in May. It's a 2-year process, so it ends in June of 2028. In that 2 years, year 1, I'll share a little bit more later on, but year 1 is going to cover that whole construction of the greenhouses. And then year 2 will be the implementation of the process. The full grant comes out to, or the full project comes out to close to $700,000. Part of that covers the award that we received from the USDA. And then as a district, in order to qualify for the grant, we also have to come in with a match. And so we had to do a personnel match, and we had to do a match for capital projects. Our personnel match was done in kind, and so that will be for the team that's already currently here in the district and working towards our time and effort in supporting the grant. And then there's also that in the capital projects, and that's what we received from the STEM Best Award. So we're matching that through the STEM Best. So everything will be fully funded without any cost. We did include a potential expense if needed, and that's to help with training for the teachers that will support the implementation of the curriculum, and if we have to work with teachers over the summer or after school hours. Our goal is to do this during our curriculum Thursdays when we have our professional development time, but if we can, then there's just this expense that's placed into our match to support that cost if needed. This is what the greenhouses will look like, and so these will be detached from the school buildings. They will be, like I said, fully funded. There will be a cement base, and then the greenhouses will be constructed on top of that base. And so the goal is to have all of that at all 3 middle schools, and students will have full access to it. So where before it was connected to just our 6th grade Poor Farm, when students used to do the trips to the Poor Farm, now students will have access. We have this extended to multiple curriculum areas. The goal is to work with our CTE teams, and so we'll have a CTE class, our food and nutrition course through FCS, and then also have our students at the middle schools and the high schools. Industrial tech students will be building the farm beds, the plant beds that will go into the greenhouses, and any of the planters that we'll need or any construction resources that we'll need within the greenhouses. The students will build that up. And then we have it connected completely to curriculum, so the students will have some chances to think about agriculture, nutrition, culinary arts, and just including our science curriculum too. So instead of expanding it just to keeping it just to sixth grade, it will now be expanded to seventh and eighth grade also, and to our Earth and Space eighth grade team. And so those are the students who are taking that Earth and Space class at the middle school, which is a high school course for our students. We also have a Science and Technology of Foods class that is an elective that is offered at the middle school, so students will also have access to that. And then we'll also be partnering with our AP Environmental Science students from the high school, who will be coming into the middle school to work with our students. And you can see just on that side of focus areas of how that will be embedded within the curriculum too. Like I mentioned before, we have our AP Environmental Science students as well as their teachers will be coming in to support our students with our middle school students. And so that's one exciting process that we'll be engaging in. And also with our high school students who will be working with our middle school students through geometry and construction class and also industrial tech. We will still be partnering with the Iowa State Extension Office Master Gardens program. And so they will be volunteering their time to come in also to work with our students. And we're trying to do a sustainable project with them for project-based learning for our middle school students to engage in just hands-on learning. And then we'll still continue our partnership with the Johnson County Poor Farm. That will now be, instead of our students traveling to the Poor Farm will come to us. And then the students would have engagement throughout the course of the greenhouse process. The Poor Farm, that sub-award that I mentioned earlier, they're gonna be working with hiring those 10 beginner farmers, and so that's what that sub-award will go to. And those farmers will be working throughout the Iowa Valley Resource Conservation and Development and the Johnson County Poor Farm to create, to just pretty much supply local produce, fresh produce directly to our school cafeteria. They will also, those 10 farmers will also be working with our students at the middle school and with our AP Environmental Science students at the high school to just think about different ways of agriculture and farming and engage them in hands-on learning. And so the goal for the 2 years, year one, like I said before, is where we'll be doing more of that building of the curriculum with our CTE and our science teachers, working with the Johnson County Poor Farm and Iowa River Valley Resource and Conservation to think through the process with the fellowship for the beginner farmers, solidifying that partnership, and then overseeing the construction of the 3 greenhouses. And that's year one. Year two will be then the implementation. So the hope is to get the greenhouses built in the spring of 2027. By fall of 2027, we'll start implementing the curriculum within the greenhouses with the students, continue our partnership, and then just monitor the programming throughout. And then you can just see over there the expected outcomes of the greenhouses in process. That's it. We have our onboarding meeting with the USDA on the 14th, and so hopefully by then I will have more answers to a lot of the questions that you might potentially have tonight. But the hope is I'm happy to come back anytime to give more information about the implementation of the process.
Well, Director Gwenigali, this is fabulous, and I love all the community connections you've made with this project, and all the things that our students will be able to do, and the money that you were able to get to pay for it all. I mean, this is really very impressive. You know, I will say, years ago at a high school that you and I both know, we had a greenhouse, and we didn't have any of this. And it didn't work. And this, you've just really made this, that'll be a great opportunity for our students. So thank you for your work on this.
Thank you.
I really couldn't love this more. I echo everything that Vice President Abraham has just said, and thank you for your persistence and perseverance to get the grant. Some of the things that I really like is the mentorship from the high school students at the middle school, the work-based learning internship, and the involvement of our community members. I was just a little bit curious if you could give us just a few more details about how the Master Gardeners will be involved. What will they be doing? How often will they be at the school?
So that's part of our onboarding process to get more information with them, but the goal is that team. They came in when the students did their Pathway to Purpose work, the 8th graders, when they went through that whole program that we did here at the CFI. We worked with that Iowa State Extension Office, and so they provided that information of saying, hey, we have a team of students, these Master Gardeners that would really love just engaging with your middle school students. And they can do this during volunteer time. So once we have the implementation and the curriculum in place, the goal is to then plan on how we can get that team just fully embedded into our system. They're right here out of the Iowa City Extension Office, so they'll be close to us to be able to come in more often as we need them to. So as we start thinking of the curriculum and developing the curriculum, that's where we'll embed in what that time and effort for that team will look like.
And there won't be any more trips to the Poor Farm, is that correct?
That's correct. So
Okay.
when we've been working with that Poor Farm team, the goal is that we're going to flip it so the trips will now be with the AP Environmental Science students from the high school going to the Poor Farm and working directly with the Poor Farm team and then coming into the middle schools to work with the students there. And so the capacity was just really huge for that, for the team for the Poor Farm to handle all of our students in the time frame with limited resources and limited staffing.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, thank you. I'm so excited to hear about this, and I second everything that's already been said. And I want to also say that I know that oftentimes one of the challenges with programs like this is continuing after the initial grant period, but what you are setting up here has so many community connections that I feel like that there will continue to be a lot of options. And I can think of other groups, in addition to all of the ones you already have mentioned, that would likely be happy to find a way to connect too. So I feel like not only is this a great way to start, but there's a lot of potential for just future success and sustainability. So thank you for this.
I just want to, as the husband, to the chagrin of his wife, commandeers about a fourth of their basement to grow plants every year this time of year. I really like this because it just really, it's a weird thing, just being able to deal with that soil and work it and being able to grow something. And I can think of just looking at this, the different extensions that you can do, whether it's bringing plants to some of the kids, some of those outdoor classrooms throughout the elementary buildings that we have throughout the district, or whether it's helping students get garden plots at the city after they make those plant starts to be able to grow their own food for their families and, you know, that kind of thing. So really thank you for pursuing this grant and then getting it. And I look forward to the next steps and the expected outcomes, the community. And it is really nice to have something other than something like this to discuss at a board meeting. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Carmen, this is just fantastic. I can't believe the amount of work that you put into this to make this happen, and the brilliance with which you've pursued this idea and concept for our students. This is a little preliminary, maybe, but do we have an idea yet about how many students you might think will be participating in these activities?
The hope is all middle school students. And so if we're
Oh,
looking
wow.
at all of our 6th grade, 7th grade, and 8th grade science classes, we're looking at all of our middle school students impacted
Okay.
by the project. And then in addition to our high school students for industrial tech and our AP environmental high school students and geometry and construction high school students, the hope is to get all of our students working through that.
Okay. That's just fantastic, Carmen. Just great.
And I think today we got notice that our elementary students that are in walking distance, so Kirkwood, Lucas, and Van Allen, will also be able to go walk to the greenhouses at the middle schools and be able to engage in that hands-on learning too.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Our next presentation is the third quarter financial report.
Before I start, I want to comment on the grants that she just displayed. That's a big, big part of additional revenue for the whole grant piece. That's totally 100% paid for. It's not coming out of taxpayer money, and it's so educational for the kids. So I just want to point that out, that financially it supports itself. So that's really good. So with that. These reports, the layout that they're in is for this report and this report only. You have a new CFO that's starting tomorrow, and my recommendation going forward is to make these reports a little bit more robust, let her have her flair in it. These reports have always been laid out like this, going from the past, going forward. So I think going forward, you're gonna see a different layout and additional information. So just put that caveat on there, and these are unaudited. With our, how we are currently right now, our breakdown in revenues, breakdown for property taxes, for certified assessments, for the accounts for about 46 to 48%. Your state aid is at 46 to 48% too. And then your federal resources and your title programs are 4 to 6%. So right there with those three caveats, that's 99% of your revenue. And your investment income and other income is only 1%. So that's why I was talking about at the very beginning. Your grants, the more you can grow that avenue, that's additional revenue that the schools and the students really can, have a huge impact from. Sorry. Your revenue percentage to date, as indicated, is currently on target to make budget. Through March, your revenue percentage of budget received is at 62.5%, whereas your expenditures are at 67.9%. The insurance fund is not included in these reports. They have not been included because they are part of the internal service fund, and they are not part of the budget, so therefore they're not like this. They can always be included going forward if the board so desires, so just please let us know how you would like to include that or not include that going forward. You want to say something?
Well, I'll wait till you finish. Before you go to the next page, I have a question about it.
Okay, I was just got one more point.
Okay.
Okay, the March property taxes, those were received in April, so those are not part of this. That was 43.5 million. So, go ahead.
Okay, all right, so, just looking at this, the capital projects, the SAVE, the disbursements as percent of budget, where does the 150% come? Just to explain that to the board and the public, or why is that at 150%?
And I'm sorry to interrupt, should we have another slide up to show, is there?
It's the pie chart slide.
Yeah, the pie chart slide.
You gotta do it from there.
I don't know how do I advance it? Oh, look at that.
There you go.
Nobody showed me that. To tell you the truth, I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know the detail of the capital projects. Maybe somebody else does. Her?
Ultimately, that's just going to be a reflection of what was entered into the line item budget in the system for that project. It's not anything necessarily that was part of our certified budget process or anything like that. It's, if you, for example, had a $100,000 project that you had within the line item budget and you spent 150, that's going to give you that 150%. And so it just says that the budget within the system may not have been accurate to what the expenditures were going to be.
Okay, and then the other number that jumps out at me in this table is the Student Activities Fund, which has an ending balance that's in the negative. I wonder if anybody wants to explain if we need to do anything about that. Does the general fund owe the Student Activities Fund money at this point?
That's a loaded question.
Okay.
I think our plan was to kind of tackle the activity fund as our next health condition report, if you will, of what we've done with general fund and SAVE and PEPAL and all those things. The general fund doesn't specifically owe the activity fund anything. If anything, the activity fund may need the general fund to tie out. As we do our CAR report in September to close out the year for our state reporting, the activity fund is not allowed to have a negative balance. And so any kind of transaction to remedy that comes from the general fund overall. And that's a practice that in this district, from it appears, has gone on for several years.
Are we doing anything to make sure that that number is as small as possible, given what we know about the concerns for the general fund?
We've made recommendations within our cost-cutting structures back in February to try to limit. So, for example, one of the things, and I think the board even received an email on this, we limited charter buses and other things to try to control costs within the activity fund.
And do we have any projections for what that student activities fund is going to look like at the end of the fiscal year?
Not at the current moment.
Okay.
We still have all of spring season to go. And summer sports through July. How does that, when does the summer sports from student activities fund stop? Is that just July 1st, we then move on to the next fiscal year?
Yep, so it's just a hard stop at that point, and then it rolls into the next one.
But this doesn't include, well, it stops in March, so we have the month of April, May, and June still to
Correct.
go.
Correct.
All right, Matt, are you able to respond to, are there anything, is there anything that won't happen because of the condition of our student activities fund? Anything
No,
that our students will be missing out on?
I think the thing we'd say is things are continuing to happen because we do support it through the general fund, right? And I think what we'll have to review with you guys when you bring the activity fund and why we haven't reduced anything more dramatically is because it would impact kids, right? That there's things that are paid for out of the activity fund, but if the activity fund doesn't have it to support it, then it ends up getting made whole by the general fund at the end. And so those are some tough things that, you know, that we'll have to work through and think about, and also understand your comfort with how much of the general fund supporting what that activity fund can't do. And of course, those things can be conversations with the community about, you know, I don't want to suggest more fundraising, but, you know, that's where some of, you know, that hole would be made up. Or are there other decisions with, you know, gate receipts that come in to support those activity funds that we would need to adjust some of the revenue coming into that fund? So we haven't really tried to step in and cut any of those things at this point too drastically, because we know it would affect what some of the kids had already planned or expected to experience this year.
I guess, you know, moving forward beyond this fiscal year, I know the idea in the past has been brought up to having budgets at the building level that are managed by the athletic directors. Have we given any thought to how that might look, or if that is even something that would be wise to consider? You probably understand all of the caveats to that I'm not privy to. I'm just throwing that out there in case it's something
Yeah,
that
I
you
think
want to
that's
kind of discuss with us.
It's an ongoing conversation we have with our buildings and with our athletic directors. They do have building budgets. I think our ability to work in those in real time, you know, is a system improvement. You know, feedback we understand from them, and feedback we try to provide to the buildings about understanding their budget and then staying within the budget. I think, again, as fundraising efforts come in, sometimes those are more accurately or more readily available in those accounts for them to understand. And so I think it's an ongoing improvement step that's part of this activity fund conversation. But also, I think even the point you're making, Director Finch, just gets it to our overall building budgets too and how those function. So, Kurt, anything else you'd want to add on there?
I mean, I would echo what Superintendent Degner said. The athletic directors do manage their own budgets overall. It's sort of within their purview to understand what their anticipated revenues are going to be and then plan their expenditures accordingly. I guess that's the best way I can put it, that, you know, if you feel like you're going to make $50,000 on your football gate for the year, but football maybe only needs $30,000 to operate with its games or its schedule, then it's up to the athletic directors to figure out where that other $20,000 might go and what programs it might support, because all of our programs, some are better at generating costs from those gate receipts or concessions or other things than others, and so it's really up to them to start to understand how they need to spread that to support all the programs.
Thank you, because I think that's something that I did not understand. I did not realize that we had building budgets. I'm sorry to belabor this point. Perhaps this is something that we should bring back to the board table another time, explore more. Thank you.
Just out of curiosity, since we're here, how was the $3.5 million budget determined? Is that what it was the year before, or how?
Typically, I think it's based on historical trends overall and rolled forward in that manner. But again, this wasn't a budget that I specifically put together, so that's just conjecture on my part.
And I know we're supposed to go back to the student activity fund in the next month and a half, but I think if there are any building level or policies, not non-board policies that you have, so district policies that, because I'm looking at 704.5, the student activities fund policy, and it's pretty bare bones. I'm not saying that we need to build out a robust board policy. I'd like to see what the district policies are on what constitutes what can be funded or should be funded, and if there's nothing there, then we should probably look at it, because we're in a time where belts will be tightened, and to get a better idea of how we can move forward responsibly, but meeting the needs of the community at the same time.
I like that idea because it gives you some kind of a parameter to say yes or no to things, right? We have to have a starting point on some of that. So we'll look at our internal, district guidance that we give, and then see if there's something else that, that would talk to on-board policy for sure.
How to do this? How do you get it to go forward?
Superintendent Degner, can you help?
Oh, sorry.
How do you get this to go forward?
There, is that the next thing? This little dial will just do it. Oh, no, I went too far.
You went too far. Whoops.
Is that one you want? Or do you want?
Sorry.
Which one do you want?
Next one. Keep skipping. I think that's it. That's it.
Yeah, there you go.
Sorry. Technology.
It's pretty small.
So this chart is on your revenues. What I want to show you, because you were talking about, from year to year. So revenue through the third quarter as of March 25 in comparison to March 26. March 25, the revenue you collected was $133.6 million in comparison to March of 26, which was $143.1 million. So there is growth in the revenue numbers. And I think I told you at the beginning, the property taxes for March were received in April, and that was the $43.3 million that was received. So since it was actually physically received, it was recorded in April and not in March. Okay.
I did have a question about that graph. So I think there's
I don't like that graph. I don't like that graph.
Can we fix that? Yeah.
I would recommend that graph go away going forward. Yeah.
We could probably just eliminate that drop off there.
Yeah, I couldn't figure out how to get rid of that.
Okay. I think there were some typos. The two lines at the bottom and that bottom table didn't match
Yes.
up. Okay, you're aware of that.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Is there a logical reason for that, or
No.
we don't know? Okay,
Well, not that we don't know, it was done incorrectly. Someone didn't prove it. Yeah.
got it. Okay.
Mm-hmm. See if I can do this here. Oops, wrong direction. Okay. This chart, ignore the line chart at the bottom, please, because it doesn't drop off either. This is for all your expenditures by month with the categories. There too, I wanted to point out on the bottom here, your piece from your prior year for your third quarter of 2020, fiscal year 25, your expenditures were $135.6 million in comparison to your FY 28, which is at $143 million. So ignore the chart, please. So the revenues are growing, but your expenses are growing at probably the exact pace, if not a little bit more. The last page. Ignore the graph. I don't like the graph either on this one. Your total cash and investments as of March 31st, $28.1 million. The tie-out was done to December 31st of 25 and March 31st of 26. The tie-out was the supporting bank statements. Given that the full bank reconciliations have not been done, we went back to the bank statements themselves and tied out the cash to make sure the cash tied out for the report. So I personally envision the reports going forward to be a little bit more encompassing as the new CFO gets on board here. And these were the reports that we had in the past. I think with some of input from the board and the management team, that additional reports can be, derived and get you a little bit more additional information. So that's just my thoughts.
What do you think about including all of the district's funds in these quarterly reports? I'm sorry, what do you think about including all district funds in these quarterly reports?
Well, that's what I said. If you want some of the funds that were left off to be included, just, I think that's a good idea going forward. I think they weren't included in the past because they weren't budgeted items. So,
Okay, well,
if you want them included, then they should be included.
If there's a reason for doing it one way or the other, I'm happy to, hear that.
It's your preference.
Okay.
Can I ask a little bit about the process? So, several months ago, as the onset of all of our issues, we talked about the need for these quarterly reports to be reviewed by the leadership team before it comes before the board. So I was just curious if we've changed anything about our process, if this is something that the superintendent, the deputy superintendent are reviewing before we put this on the board agenda as a quarterly report. Have we gotten to that?
Yeah, Kim submitted them to us as part of her weekly report, and then we did review them. I know some of you had some questions about the funds included, not included, like Kim explained. That was something we had talked about as far as what are budgeted items and which are non-budgeted items. Obviously, they appear on the cash totals on the back page, but we're happy to make that change if you'd like. We'd also noticed the red line that was annoying, and Director Lingo had mentioned about that. So, yes, we're working to review those. We do the weekly meetings with Kim, and so, yes, I guess is the easy answer to your question, Director Finch.
Okay. And then and I don't know if you want to clean this up afterwards, I think that the title for the table on the right-hand side, I think it's labeled wrong.
Yeah, it is wrong.
Okay.
It is wrong. Yeah.
All right.
I noticed that this
You
morning.
noticed that too? Okay, thank you.
I just wanted to make a comment to Director Finch's point about reviews. We're in the process too of getting policy revised and setting up a new version of the Financial Oversight Committee, and I envision these things being regular topics of that body once it is established, and probably providing some good input into reporting going forward as well. So.
Yeah, I totally agree that the finance committee that you're establishing should have part of this as well too, for input, because that will make things smoother from the committee right to the board then. So yes.
Other questions or comments?
And I will put on a plug real quick for if you want to see the robustness, you can just Google of our incoming CFO. You can Google Pat Moore CFO and check out her website, because she puts everything on there for display in one easy to access area. Or I did with Solon, so I imagine she'll probably apply it to us as well. So.
Thank you for your work.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And our third presentation is personal device survey results. Executive Director Potacek.
All right, good evening. First, I want to give a shout out to Carmen. I know Heather was back there as well. Members of our team that really worked through that farmhouse, Ben Graham. I think Monique was part of that as well. Dr. Danielle Riney, all just phenomenal, and what a great attribute for our district. So huge thank you to them before I get started here with the personal device. So first, I want to start off also by thanking our staff and our families for participating in the survey here. We had a very good turnout rate, and I'll go through those here this evening. There was just a ton of data as part of the survey here tonight. some of which we'll go over, some of which we won't. So encourage any questions or conversations you would like to have regarding any of that data, certainly at the end, or if you just want to interrupt me, that's totally fine as well. So again, that's our overview here for tonight. Again, a ton of data points for review for all of us. I just wanted to go through kind of that timeline that we presented a couple of different times here. So we are at that May, June, looking to, we're presenting here to you tonight. Then we want to inform and educate of any changes that may or may not be taken with our policy, and then obviously begin implementation next August at the beginning of the next school year. I did want to provide some information on when we provided additional or solicited additional feedback from our communities, whether it be staff or our families. So I wanted to get that on there. This is the third time we've done this. And again, we had a very good rate of turnouts from both our staff as well as our community. So I did want to provide some summaries based on the data. I appreciate Vice President Abraham for sharing an email with me. So first, an own up, if you did not see the updated slides here this afternoon, they are updated based upon some errors that were in the data. Behind the scenes, if you've never worked with Qualtrics, we had a separate survey for the families, is the data that I'm referring to. The staff data was fine, but the surveys for our families, if they selected elementary, there was a question bank, selected middle school, a question bank, selected high school, a different question bank. So the middle school and high school questions were the exact same, but there was 2 questions that were the exact same, one in middle school, one in high school. So some of the data that you saw originally in that first draft that was posted last Friday included some duplicate data. So you'll see the fixed data, the corrected data that's here tonight that was uploaded earlier this afternoon. So again, I apologize for that error. That's totally my bad on that as somewhat of a newbie still to Qualtrics. So I wanted to provide just some overall summaries based upon what the data showed, first of all, with our staff. So looking at our secondary, overwhelming majority of our staff has seen an improvement in engagement, staff members' ability to teach or support the students, as well as student behavior since our new policy was implemented. If you've talked to our staff in the building, this is done due to the fidelity in which the policy has been implemented. So I don't think this is a surprise to any of us in this room or any of us that know or work with people that are in the buildings, that was an improvement that we began to see with the new policy. And that a majority of the staff want middle school and high school to have the same policy. Again, we'll go through the data. You'll see the exact numbers for each of those responses, but the majority of the staff that were surveyed and that did fill this out wanted to see those same policies. In elementary, you saw that nearly 2/3 of the staff would support an elementary personal device. And we'll go through what that looks like currently, because it's not that there's nothing that's out there, but be more formalized with a policy similar to secondary.
I'm sorry to interrupt. I just want to clarify one thing. When you talk about, for instance, on this slide, nearly 2/3 of staff at elementary level would take whatever position, do you mean of respondents or?
Of respondents, yep.
Okay, and
Yeah.
so can you give us an idea of about
Yeah.
what percentage of staff?
Yeah, so is that
responded?
okay if I do that when I go
sorry.
through the total?
Yes.
No, I saw that question as well today. So when we go through the total response for elementary, middle school, and high school, I'll share exactly how many staff or how many families or households we have within our district, so you can kind of see what the ratio and the turnout rate is for the surveys. Yeah. And then when we take a look at the family information summary that was provided based upon the results, a strong majority of our families believe that the current policy is effective and the positive impact on student learning and engagement. Again, I don't think that's a surprise to anyone in here. A clear majority believe that the current policy is just about right regarding the balance of phone use and wants to keep the current cell phone policy. And then in high school, you'll see this as a change from the earlier presentation that was updated earlier, that was updated last Friday compared to the update from today. High school, you'll see kind of a distribution of those that would strongly support to not strongly support. That's kind of like a bell curve when you take a look at the results there, actually an inverted bell curve. So you'll kind of see that as far as how those responses were balanced out between the secondaries. Then elementary, strong majority of our families would support an updated policy, and an overwhelming majority of our students don't bring their cell phone to school. That was one of the questions that we wanted feedback on from our elementary parents, is how many students are bringing a device to school. So a note with the data, you'll see that some of those, if you're somebody looks at, there's two numbers and then there's a total, and those things don't match. I'm like, Kristen, I need you to help me get this information, make sure that I'm understanding this correctly. So we do have families that completed the survey that have students, whether it be elementary, middle school, or high school. So the totals, while there's one respondent for that particular for that family, they may have had different totals, whether it be elementary, middle school, or high school. So you sometimes see the difference in the totals where they don't equal the middle school or high school or equal elementary, middle, or high school. So that's really to help justify why you see some of those changes in those numbers. This is getting to that question about what is our turnout rate. So again, really proud of the turnout rate that we had amongst our staff and our families. When we take a look at our staff, we've got just about 2,600, just over 2,600 building staff members that would have been able to complete the survey. So that equates to about 37% of our staff through elementary, middle school, and high school participated in the survey. When we take a look at our families, we had 2,220 responses. We've got about just over 8,700 total households within our district. So we had about a 25% turnout rate for our families. This doesn't mean that maybe two parents in the same household took the survey at the same time. Again, we did not. It was a very kind of a general link that we provided to both staff and families, so it did not allow us to see exactly which school either a staff member works in or is employed in, or that a family has students in. So it's just very general in nature as far as the information. Then we're going to go into the results. Again, the staff results that you see, both the beginning part here as well as the appendix, those numbers were not changed. So you'll see for this first question about most accurately describes their preference regarding our district's cell phone policy with three different selections that they could choose from, either to change to have more access. Again, probably not surprised to see that that was not a popular option there. Either keep the current policy as it exists, or to change the policy to be more restrictive during the school day for our students. Again, you'll see those totals as well as separated by middle school and high school as well, where the largest numbers were right there in the middle, although we did have closer with the high schools wanting to be more restrictive. The next staff question that we have highlighted here at the beginning is which of the following statements do they most agree with? That either middle school or high school should have the same policy, middle school should have a more restrictive, or high school should have a more restrictive policy. So you'll see that data broken down again by middle school and high school. The majority are kind of those first two responses, whether the same policy, which had more responses in that particular area. And then you see that second highest with the middle school should have a more restrictive policy than high school does. So you'll see again, if you were trying to reference back to the information posted last Friday, this is where the changes are, slides 11, 12, and 13 here, as well as slides 20 and 21 later in the appendix. So again, the family survey results based on your experience or your child's experience, how would you describe the current balance of phone use? So again, the policy right now states that students can use it during passing time or during lunch. Or study hall. So that's where you see the rate there, whether it be about right, too restrictive, not restrictive enough, or not sure. So again, you'll see kind of a balance between about right, where the majority of our families are, or a high number of our families are, middle school and high school, and then the second highest response rate was the not restrictive enough. The second question for families here on this particular slide, or on this particular portion of the presentation, is which of the following most accurately describes your preference regarding our district's cell phone policy. Those three responses change the policy to allow students to have more access to their cell phones during the school day, to keep the policy as it exists, or to change the policy to be more restrictive during the school day. So again, right there in the middle is where you see our highest in terms of how our families answered both middle school and high school, and then to be more restrictive, you see that as the second highest response rate, still high as well. The last question here, this is slide 13 if you're following along at home. Would you support a stronger policy that restricts phone use for the entire school day? This was again separated by middle school and high school, and this is where I talked about that inverted bell curve, where you see kind of that with the high school in particular. But you see spread out a little bit more so at the middle school level, where the highest number is strongly support, where the second highest is strongly opposed. So we've got really our respondents from our families across our middle schools that are really kind of all over the place in terms of supporting or not supporting bell-to-bell policy. This next slide here is elementary. So we've talked over the last 2 or 3 years. So the expectations for our students with their cell phones in elementary exist within the handbook. So there is no official policy that similar to what we have that we begin implementation with the secondary. But again, it exists within the handbook with elementary. Still enforced by the teachers, still an expectation of students with their families when they come to school. What they should or should not be doing with their cell phone, but this would make it more of a policy again as it stands with our with our secondaries. So again, consideration, and then what would be our family's support for putting this into policy. And the majority of our families, again, strongly support or would support a policy. So again, those were kind of some of the slides I wanted to highlight just as the main part of the presentation. There's a lot of slides, both with staff feedback as well as our family feedback. There was also opportunities for some open-ended feedback from our families. So there was a lot of responses. So thanks again to our families for really being specific with some of their feedback. I mean, hundreds, maybe thousands of responses that we received from our families. So we try to put those within general themes, and you'll see those later on in the presentation in the appendix. But with the air of that, I will, certainly questions you all have, if there's additional slides that you view or that you see would be important for you to view here tonight, certainly happy to do so.
Go ahead. I think this is great. Thank you for all of this work. It's really good information. I would like to, I'm curious about the next steps. I'm seeing a lot of potential here, looking at some of, with a little bit more nuance. I know what you're doing is you're giving us the high level. And then I'm just thinking about, just as one example, when you're looking at the family responses related to the number, who preferences for stricter or less restrictive policy. At the middle school, 37% of the respondents wanted a more restrictive policy, and then 29% of the high school family respondents wanted a more restrictive policy, which of course is not the majority, but it is significant. Yep. And so I'm interested in what the opportunities are in the months ahead to kind of dig into some of these things and say, okay, well, what might be our options here for, I mean, obviously we have a general sense that what's in place is working fairly well, but there are people seeing opportunities for improvement or continual work or continued work on this. So I'm interested in what you think is ahead.
Well, because that data is so spread out, it's really tough. I mean, you talk to the folks in the building, obviously there's pros and cons with what currently exists, what would happen if there was a full ban at either or both of the levels. So the implementation, again, would be key. Obviously, if you move to a full ban, you're having your entire staff monitored. To just have administrators or support staff be the only folks that monitor to address those in the hallways would be impossible when the buildings are anywhere from 1,000 to almost 1,700 at the middle school or high school. So the enforcement would be a little bit more challenging at either level. I'm not saying impossible, but it would be a change based upon how they're enforcing it now. I think back to some of the community commenters that we've had in the past. One of the things that has been continually kind of discussed in a few different meetings was what's that access look like at lunch? So how are we promoting kind of social interaction with our students during the lunchtime, whether it be through cell phones or whether it be through the Chromebooks, because students are allowed to have those at the lunch table as well. I think through the lens of, there's pros and cons to that as well. Some of the students really, that's their time just to hone in and just kind of decompress, and that's their way of which they do it. I think it's also not necessarily the norm that all students are on it in the cafeteria as well. So, I think there's some things that we could look to address a couple of different ways. I know, speaking to the staff, we, just kind of a plug that we'll have our Chromebook and our screen time surveys that will begin going out next week to our families, where a lot of that attention really that they want to see that focuses on the Chromebook and what's that appropriate usage, and then how does that not align with the personal the cell phones.
Thanks for that. You touched on something that I was thinking about as I was reading through these results earlier, and that is thinking about, okay, one of the things, as you mentioned, we've heard from community commenters is the impact that there can be culturally and just interpersonally when there is less reliance and use of cell phones. And I'm betting we have a lot of really creative, smart people in our community that there are things that people could brainstorm to sort of influence cultural shift away from constant phone usage too, and make the norm be more toward less usage than more, and so I'm interested in continuing the conversation over time. This is not a one and done kind of thing. This is a thing that I think evolves over time and trying different things out. But I would love to see those kinds of conversations be taking place, and also perhaps in combination once the next survey is done and we have results from that. I mean, it's related. And so just see what might come out of that, and recognize that, yeah, we want to be able to have policies in place so that people aren't kind of pulled around in a bunch of different directions once the school year starts, but also to recognize that we might continue to evolve over time as we learn more, because I really think it's so important. I know that some people made the comment that, well, we want students to learn how to manage their phones. That's a thing they're going to need to do in the real world. But the fact is we staged that with all kinds of things. We don't let kids drive when they're 12. We don't, let kids drink when they're 17. So I think that there are ways that we can model healthy use. And so I'm just making a plug for continuing that conversation as much as we can.
Yeah, and if I could just follow that, I think like the bottom line is that change is hard, right? And at the outset of this process, there was a lot of resistance to even making the change that we did at the secondary level. And now you look at the data, and almost no one wants to go back, right? They all recognize the benefits of the changes that we made. I'm trying to, and you just took my screen away.
I'm sorry.
I was trying to sort of negotiate the results of this data that you have up there with the other data that shows in the middle school, there's actually more that strongly support a more restrictive policy than oppose and strongly oppose it. So, I know that the study was not designed to disaggregate the data based on the buildings, because that's a question that I sent in this week, because I think it would be interesting, because our buildings all have different cultures, and in terms of having a pilot at one of our middle schools of a bell-to-bell ban, just to see how it goes at that school, if there was a population of, a family and an educator population who were more wanting the stricter policy. That I think that would be interesting to have a pilot at one of our middle schools, because we think about sixth graders compared to our seniors. That's a big difference, and so for me, it just doesn't seem right to have the same one-size-fits-all policy for sixth graders compared to our 12th graders. And again, I'm sorry we have all this data and we're not able to disaggregate it in that way. But maybe that's something that we could do in the future. I'm for something little, I'm for moving the needle to a more restrictive policy, especially at the middle school level. But I also recognize the situation that we're in, and that morale is low, and that it would be very difficult for our teachers to take on any more than they're already taking on right now in this environment. And so I'm also fine in just monitoring things right now and seeing how they play out in the next year, and coming back to this because I don't want to put more on our educators' plates right now.
I would first the one thing that I will say that is, when I look at the data, that I think is pretty transparent as far as elementary goes. So if we want to take that to make sure that it's a board policy, I would like to see that brought to P&G for a board policy.
Yep.
So at some point over the summer, because I know our next next P&G committee meeting is rather robust, to put it mildly. And just to echo, like, I would like to see the needle pushed, but at this point in time, given the amount of change and things going on within the district, I don't want to put more on people's plates. And I mean, I still would like to look at lunchroom, but then again, I understand that issue as well for the stress of the people that have to enforce that during lunch. And I know what a middle school and high school, well, I know what a middle school lunch looks like from teaching it. I remember what a high school lunch looks like, but I can imagine that it won't be any more fun than a middle school lunch. So anyway, that's kind of my 2 cents.
Thank you.
And Lucas, thank you for doing this, and thank you to the admin team to breaking this out into 2 different subjects, so we can approach Chromebooks on the next one.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I think once we have the Chromebook information, that may affect how we look at this too. I mean, they are 2 separate issues for sure, but as somebody said, you know, the cell phones and the Chromebooks come out at lunch and can cause issues, or, you know, cause kids to just be zoned in on their device. So I think that it'll be interesting to see the Chromebook policy info too. We did hear from a couple people in the community that they wanted to see the middle school policy more like the elementary. I mean, I know you have data about this, but I'm in favor of trying to, steal your phrase, move the needle on the middle school as well. I think maybe that's a place we could think about starting at some point. Any other comments? Thank you.
All right, thank you.
You did that you know, got that survey together and did that all very quickly. I really appreciate your hard work on that, so
Again,
thank
apologize for that error.
you. Yeah. Okay, we're moving on to action items. The first action item is the 800 policy buildings and sites. Director Lingo, do you have anything to add about that?
Nothing to add. Potentially go back to the 801.1, was it? At a future meeting. So, motion, I guess.
Okay, do you want to, someone have a motion to approve?
The 800s policy building and sites.
Second.
Secretary Colvin, we're ready for a vote.
Online voting is open. All votes have been cast and the motion carries with all directors voting in favor.
Next action item is the policy primers. Director Lingo, anything to add on that?
Nothing to add. Just motion to approve policy primers.
Second.
Secretary Colvin, we're ready for a vote.
Online voting is open. All votes have been cast and the motion carries with all directors voting in favor.
The next item is the SBRC exhibit approval. Chief Operating Officer Kurt Pratt, do you have anything to say about that you want to add?
Nothing specifically, just updated based on from where we approved the last set of exhibits to the work that's been done with the presentations from PFM and other data that we've uncovered specific to some requests for different MSAs or spending authority requests. So welcome to answer any questions if anybody has any.
Could you just remind us when when we're going to go to the state to have them decide on the SBRC request?
So we go on June 9th, but it's an information only agenda item for them. So my hope is at that meeting that they will provide us guidance on what specifically we need to provide for those requests for modifications to our spending authority.
Okay, so we don't have a hearing date at this point for them to make a decision on the request, is that correct?
We have a hearing date for an appearance.
For an
We don't
appearance,
have a hearing
right.
date on any action as far as we're aware.
Okay.
We did have board members, and I'm gonna forget the third one, Finch Lingo, and was it you, Jennifer Horn Fraser, that were gonna attend that last SBRC hearing? I was just gonna assume the same ones this time. We're still in that kind of 9 to noon window. They don't give us a time until a little closer, so as soon as we know, we'll pass that on to you guys.
We
Okay,
have a
thank you.
meeting that night, correct?
Yeah. I mean, we'll travel to Des Moines, but I think you guys were gonna join electronically unless you change your mind, but.
So I brought this up at the last meeting about kind of unpacking the special ed deficit, the ballooning from 10 million to 18 million, and I discussed it with Superintendent Digner this week, and perhaps that is something that we could look at the second meeting in May.
Yep.
Okay, in the next meeting, yeah.
Are you done?
I'm done.
Great, okay. The updated unspent balance for fiscal year 26 shows $7.5 million. Which property sales or expected property sales does that include, or does it not include any?
It includes all three.
Which one, can you read?
So it'd be the 1725 North Dodge, the property across from Liberty High School, and then the former Hills Elementary property.
Okay. Or do you, okay, so those three. In the document, it shows that roughly 2.27 million being paid that was paid on transportation costs is being coming out of the general fund, being moved from the general fund to PEPL. It's partially because the first time that I caught this was reading the document or heard about it. How does this fit into, or what went into the strategy of moving it over to PEPL, given the limited nature of PEPL right now?
Yes.
Versus general fund, because, I mean, both have pros and cons, and I'm just
There's
wondering.
definitely a balance. And as we talked about earlier, we still have the freedom to not do that. We just brought it to the committee's attention. And again, we're looking for further guidance from them on what that documentation they would require to allow that. Ultimately, they may not at that point in time, but we certainly want to bring it to their attention and explore it. But I agree from a board perspective, we need to balance which one is more critical.
If you have any follow-up.
No, I was just gonna ask, Kurt, we had talked that those amounts were already budgeted into PEPL. Of course, as we've looked at our cash balances, that was probably part of the other consideration there, Mitch, would be that those were already budgeted in there, and so would it make sense to take them out of PEPL? We also know there was that negative adjustment to save, that is part of what we're presenting in this. And so as some way to offset, we at least wanted to understand if it was an option, if they would allow for that to offset that in a positive fashion, just like the asbestos MSA request, that we could potentially make there. So at least we'll know.
Any other questions or comments? Is there a motion to approve?
Motion to approve?
Second.
Secretary Colvin, we're ready to vote.
Online voting is open. All votes have been cast and the motion carries with all directors voting in favor.
Next up is the resolution interfund loan, general fund to save. Who would like to talk about this?
Go ahead, Kurt. You can start.
This is just the action item following our presentation on April 28th for an interfund loan from the general fund to save to make our June 1st, but actually closer to May 25th bond payment for those. So, and then the money borrowed to, or the money loaned to the save fund will then have to be paid back by October 1st. So.
Any questions? Is there a motion?
I move to approve and adopt the resolution approving the interfund loan.
Second? Secretary Colvin, we're ready to vote.
Online voting is open. All votes have been cast and the motion carries with all directors voting in favor.
Next up is the Facilities Master Plan Resolution. We had talked about this previously, and there were some amendments, so I don't know how to do this
I
exactly.
took a stab at a motion, if you look in your,
Okay,
I think I've captured it.
No?
You want me to read it?
Yeah.
Motion to approve the Facilities Master Plan Resolution with the amendment to include the definition of financial stability defined as completion and submission of FY24 audit and bank reconciliations for FY26, no need for anticipatory warrants, and written recommendation by the Chief Financial Officer and Superintendent that district is financially stable.
comments on that? Does that capture what we wanted to say?
Appreciate the work on it.
So we have to do a motion to do that.
If we, yep, we
Do I- I'll just,
yep, here, let me turn it this way here.
okay. Motion to approve the, I'm, by the motion, go what?
right here.
Oh, it's right there, so it's already in there. Sorry, I feel foolish.
That's all right.
No, yeah, you just go.
All right, very
You
good.
take it.
All right, motion to approve the Facilities Master Plan Resolution with the, oh my goodness.
Yeah.
I just lost it.
It's called karma.
You want me to come back to it?
Yes.
Let's see.
Okay, sorry. Motion to approve the Facilities Master Plan Resolution with the amendment to include the definition of financial stability defined as completion and submission of FY24 audit and bank reconciliations for FY26, no need for anticipatory warrants, and written recommendation by the Chief Financial Officer and Superintendent that the district is financially stable.
Second.
Director Colvin, or Secretary Colvin, we're ready to vote.
Online voting is open. There's nothing coming through, Director Lingo.
No. Motion to approve, or not approve, but yes
Okay,
vote, please.
Thank you. All votes have been cast and the motion carries with all directors voting in favor.
Thank you. Next up is to approve the amended 2025-2026 certified budget. Any comments on that?
Appreciate the board taking this up. This is probably more of a procedural matter than anything. A lot of districts do this every year. Certainly, districts I've been in previously, it was a annual item. There's no property tax implications. There's no real consequences other than, from an audit perspective, they prefer that you have amended your budget before you potentially have gone over what the certified budget states for those items. So we did our calculations and are approving this in advance of that timeline. So.
Any questions or comments?
Sorry, Kurt.
Director Eastham?
Could you summarize the changes and that this amendment accomplishes in the budget?
Yeah, so to amend the budget, the instruction line, the new student support services line, and then the capital projects line are the three they kind of tackle. And so we just adjusted the budgeted amounts up, which again has no property tax implications by any means. So it's really just more procedural than anything.
Okay, thank you.
Is there a motion?
I motion to approve.
Second.
Secretary Colvin, we're ready to vote.
Online voting is open.
Oops, sorry, Kim, I think I just logged myself out. I'll vote yes.
Vote in favor. Thank you, Director Eastham.
mine still isn't working, but I'm a yes vote.
Thank you, Director Lingo. All votes have been cast and the motion carries with all directors voting in favor.
And our final action item is the UEN Steering Committee member.
I wanted to volunteer for this spot if there is nobody else who wants to do it. I'd be very glad to do it. I talked to President Malone about that, and I'm glad to do that.
Great. I don't think anybody wants to arm wrestle you for it or anything. So do we need a motion on this?
We do, yep, we do need to vote.
Okay. Is there a motion?
I move that we ask Director Horn Fraser to serve as our UEN Steering Committee member.
Is there a second?
Second.
Secretary Colvin, we're ready for a vote.
Online voting is open. Director Finch, I haven't got yours. Thank you. All votes have been cast and the motion carries with all directors voting in favor.
Moving on to upcoming events and community updates. Superintendent Degner, legislative update.
Yeah, thank you, Vice President Abraham. One we've kind of already referenced tonight with the Save Scoop that was part of the property tax, so we'll be working to understand the implications of that to school districts. There's obviously some other, or a number of other impact points to education for legislative bills. A couple that we're paying close attention to that were passed would be the MAHA bill with the physical activity and the screen time, 8th grade eligibility for varsity sports, preschool for young children seemed to be a positive one that made it through. We had some families and kids that were in a little bit of a gap time period, and we didn't really have a good option for them, and so that would allow some better continuity of service for those parents, so they didn't need to seek an outside provider for that. And then, of course, the behavior bill. So those are probably the most noteworthy ones. That's kind of typical workflow for us as the legislative session ends, and then we start to study those and ready for implementation throughout the summer. So those are a few ones of note. I'm sure there's others that I'm not mentioning there, but just so people kind of have an understanding of what we do, and then we get updates from our different partner organizations, and any rule writing that happens from the DE will get communicated to us at that. And then as we have that, we work towards implementation.
What is the preschool change?
Yeah, Liza, you want to talk about that, Elizabeth? She's really excited about it, so. Yeah.
Actually very excited about it. So it will take effect July 1st, 2027. But what it allows is for a student who turns 5 between March 15th and September 15th to be able to do another year in preschool. So typically right now, right now, as the legislation reads, is once a student becomes kindergarten eligible, in order for them to attend preschool, they would receive 0 funding. And so then typically they would have to, they do preschool with us, leave, and then come back to kindergarten, or they enroll in kindergarten when their family doesn't feel that they're ready. And so this legislation allows for students between that March 15th and September 15th to do an additional year in preschool. And then we would receive that half funding, what we currently do with the statewide voluntary preschool program. And then we would continue with full day if they chose at that tuition rate, or free if they qualify for free and reduced. So we are really excited about this.
Awesome. As someone that knows people that have been in that bind, I'm glad.
Oh, 100%. We've tried so hard to do creative solution, and try to help families through, but there are families that just aren't ready to send their kid.
If your child was September 14th birthday, it was you go to kindergarten or you don't get preschool.
Correct. Or we would have to tell families they need to leave and go to private preschool, which is just painful for us to do. So we're really excited about this. So it doesn't go into effect this coming school year. But the following school year it will. So we'll work with our marketing and advertising when we roll out preschool registration next year to make sure families are aware of that.
That is a great piece of news to come out of Des Moines thing, yeah, great.
The athletic eligibility, is that for all sports? Do you know?
It's my understanding.
Do you have,
yes.
okay.
Yeah.
Right.
I don't know what flexibility will be allowed or that we'll want to exert on that. You know, you can imagine some rural districts in the state, right, are probably having difficult times being able to field competitive teams. For us, I'm sure there's going to be a competitive nature of it, right? That if you have a high-performing 8th grade student, you know, and how that works, or how that funnels up to even some of our JV or fresh soft teams where maybe we do struggle with some numbers. Again, we'll work to get the best information we can from the Athletic Association and from our partner agencies to implement, but it'll be a little bit unique in some different spots, I think, throughout the state about how it's received.
And so, do districts have flexibility on how we make policy surrounding
That's what I'm
that?
saying, I don't
or
know that
We
yet.
don't know
Yeah,
yet, okay,
yeah.
yeah.
Is that something you guys will want to discuss, I guess, before we would move on it internally? Is that something we should have on the radar to maybe bring back to the board table before we would implement anything following next year, if there is local flexibility? We don't want to get out in front of you and do something if it's something you want to entertain here first.
I guess I would like to see what the proposal is. I mean,
Okay.
yeah, if that works timing-wise.
So if districts are allowed flexibility and we have a plan of how we would look at that, or whether we'd exert any and change into that or not, we'll bring it to you.
I definitely want to, see what your recommendations are for that. Those freshman teams, those JV teams, I would really hate for some of our, freshmen and sophomores to not be able, to have that opportunity, right, to play with their classmates, because we've got
huge
8th graders
influx,
coming up. So I think that's something that needs to be carefully considered.
And part of that consideration is the fact that parents are redshirting 8th graders to have them repeat so that they have better, it is a thing, so that they have better opportunity to play college sports. So if parents are redshirting their 8th graders and then we have an 8th grader that's supposed to be a freshman, I'm just saying that throws the current freshmen, our first year high school students, I don't know, but I think these are all topics to discuss on policy.
Yeah, I think it'd be helpful to get some information from maybe athletic directors, staff, or parent groups.
Well, first we'll find out if there's any local autonomy, and then if there is, we'll bring it back for a conversation.
Any comments on the director liaison reports?
Hell, I'm just gonna put in there, I went to quite a few events this past month, and I actually got to put in, but I made it to the Four-Walled Relays, where I was really excited to have a dilly bar, and then my children took it from me and ate it, so that was not great, but they enjoyed it. There are a couple people here, well, they're gone now that they're climbing over, but the real highlight was the Lincoln Elementary Carnival and the work of art that is the Nose Picker. And it is, it is like
I saw it.
Yeah, they put in foam and molded it, and it was fun but whoever the parent was that bought the prizes for the Nose Picker was really thoughtful, because they're all sticky. So the kids would stick their hand up and they get a sticky, what looked like a booger or a sticky hand or something like that. So it really added to the mystique of the Nose Picker.
Thank you.
I didn't get my liaison report in. I'm so sorry about that. But I did want to highlight the musicals at. I got to City and to West High, and again the talent and the instruction from our theater departments and our music departments is just amazing. They were both delightful.
And I just wanted to commend everybody who had a role in organizing and putting on the celebratory events, the Silver Salute and Education is Everybody's Business. I think it was really nice to be able to honor our long-term teachers and our retirees and all of the amazing things that are happening in the district. It was really powerful to see all that together, and I just want to say thanks to everybody who did all the work to put those on.
Moving on to agenda setting, on the 26th, our policy and governance. So looks like the 700s, 900s, and then some primers. Or those three, no, those three are three we asked about, yeah.
So policy 708, looking at a board policy for email retention. I guess we're set to review that anyway. We probably don't have time to go back to 801.1 right away. Maybe we can put that in the parking lot.
Okay.
This. Why do I have this written down, the student activities? Were we going to look at the student activities fund as a policy?
Or at least the district policies that we
It
have.
was, it was guidance on spending for activities or athletic funds, so
Okay.
potentially a regulation or us pulling together the information we already have and bringing that back to then make that determination. So I don't know, Superintendent, if that's policy and governance or that's back to the board table at this point.
I guess maybe to ask how soon you would want to do that. Maybe we could take that in conjunction with the presentation on the activity fund, just to say, here's the policy, and then you could start to entertain some ideas about what you might want to
That
do with
makes
that
good
as you
sense.
see the fund instead of something separate. Okay.
Sounds good.
And then the regular board meeting, we have an education showcase. Do we know? That might be? No, not yet.
I don't right
Okay.
now.
I'm sure Kristen has it for us.
Yeah, I guess everybody can look at these. We'll hear from the interim chief financial officer update.
Director Abraham, the showcase is Grant Elementary.
Nice, okay.
We're also going to do that special ed review that came up in the meeting tonight, so we'll plan to
Oh, yes, okay.
plan for that, kind of walk you through that process we went through with the state about the different special ed expenditures, so we'll be
Great,
prepared
okay,
to do that.
so we'll add that to the agenda.
Yeah.
Okay. Are there other things? I feel like Director Finch, there was something you said, I'll bring that up during agenda setting.
That was about using AI to sift through all of our data that we go through. Perhaps that's something we can put in the parking lot as well and look at it in operations committee whenever we have our first operations committee for the year.
Right.
Were we going to have a board retreat? That might be a topic for a board retreat as well.
Okay.
I know we talked about that and then we got busy. So that's just, I'm putting that
Okay.
out. There's another place we might have to talk about something like that.
Are you thinking of the professional development that we're doing?
It's
Yeah.
on June 2nd.
Yeah.
On June 2nd at 4:30, I think is what I have.
I don't know if that's a place where that could go. It may not be.
Yeah, yeah, we can talk to President Malone about that. Okay. About exactly what that's going to entail that day. Anything else?
Just a question maybe, Molly, under discussion items, there's an item for the interim chief financial officer update. Is that going to be her final communication to us about her work? Or is she
No.
Or is this just,
No, it'll be on June 23rd.
okay, thanks very much.
So Kim will miss a little time with us. She'll be there for the meeting on the 26th and then be back on the 23rd to deliver her final report. But she won't be reporting and checking in between as consistently there. But there's a gap there where she'll be putting that together her report and then coming back at the end of June.
Okay,
Matt, I won't be here on the 26th.
Won't be here the 26th either. I lied. So we can have Pat will provide an update.
Okay. So we'll change that, not interim,
Yeah.
to the June. Anything else? Okay.
Can I say one more thing?
Yes.
I don't think we got to it. Sorry, I just thought of it. That board financial leadership doc, when we were talking about that, or would the board be amenable to having that as a once a month agenda item for review? Do you want to keep it on every meeting? And then just to maybe kind of, don't even need an answer on this, but to think about with Pat starting, do we want to every meeting update from the CFO, kind of both of those, just what kind of cadence do you want to keep those on for a period of time?
Anything else? Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Meeting is adjourned. Thank you.